mind lunch. It will be different next time a little bit. I'll have more of the formal stuff to begin with. But at the same time, everybody enjoyed the rest of it, you know.
Much needed, a few hours off.
Exactly, much needed. But I went to the hairdressers before, and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Mastermind." She said, "Oh, is that like a quiz?"
What's your topic of choice?
Yeah. Okay.
Broadcaster recording. A10 recording.
Callum, can I interview you one time? Thank you. I'd like to do that.
And just call me if you need it.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Callum.
Yeah. Bye. Okay, in action. Hey, Dale.
Hey, Jess.
Thank you so much for coming on the Networking Spark podcast. It's amazing to have you here. You're also a Platinum Spark member.
I am.
So awesome to have you. First of all, I'd love to ask you to tell us a little about yourself and to really define, because a lot of people won't know, define what is a fractional CRO.
Completely. Thank you very much for having me, first of all. A fractional CRO is, let's break it down into its two components. What's a CRO? It stands for Chief Revenue Officer. It's kind of a new role. It primarily sits in the sales space. Typically, some CROs have marketing that sit underneath them, but usually it's very much sales and customer success. The main reason that role has been created is to pull together and break down the silos between sales and marketing, which are often very disconnected. A fractional CRO is somebody that does that part-time for potentially a number of different clients. It's more prevalent in the startup world. Sales professionals as well as sales leadership are very expensive roles. If they're doing their job correctly, they're the most well-paid people in any organization. So not always feasible for a startup to have a band of account executives and BDRs and VPs of sales and a CRO to manage all of that. That's a very expensive way to go to market. I learned about this last year, so it was very new, but I knew that was what I wanted to do and where I wanted to put my time and energy. And that's what I did. I don't know many people that do this. I think I can probably count on one hand. The majority of those in the UK, I know of, I think, 2 out in the States. The fractional leadership roles are becoming more and more prevalent. The CFO and the COO have been quite popular over the recent years, and I'm hearing that a few more people are starting to move into different spaces, whether it's CTO or CRO or even a CMO as well.
I think it's hugely beneficial because there's so many people now starting their own business, coming out of employment and doing things on their own term. Mm-hmm. Fractional means that you can dip in, you can arrive at that business for a certain amount of time, do what you need to do, and then go, rather than them having to employ you, which is so beneficial and so exciting. So it's great to hear about all your role. Thank you.
Of course.
We have seen you because you're a part of Spark, we're watching you succeed, and we've seen you get so much success very, very quickly, and it's really exciting to watch because every week we share our wins on our WhatsApp group, and you've always got really exciting wins, and it's just amazing to see you flourish and to really help other business owners. So super exciting to be working with you. Talking about networking, can you give us a little bit of your experience of networking and why you think it's a great thing for business owners to be doing?
Completely, and great question. I'll talk about a few things. The first, I'm going to talk about a new term that's again coming and becoming a little bit more popular that people keep asking me about, which is called nearbound. So from a sales perspective, outbound, everyone's quite aware of. Maybe we've been in outbound sales roles as we were younger. That's kind of how my sales career started. Inbound speaks for itself. As consumers, we call into a business, we make an inquiry, and we may make a purchase over the phone. Nearbound talks about the network and ecosystems and partnerships that we all have, primarily in a B2B space, but also in a B2C environment, to go to market and to get customers. The trust is already there with existing relationships. The cost of acquisition is a lot lower, and it's just huge. So that's something I'm a big supporter of and want to do more of, and to spread that good word. How that's helped me directly, Started my own business 8 months ago now. I didn't do what I did previously in my corporate day job, but just on my own. I decided to take a slightly different tact, not just in the role that I did, but also with the people that I worked with. And 1 second. Want me to clap?
No, not at all.
So in coming to do that and starting the business, my first worry as a business owner and concern was, where is my first deal going to come from? Always a scary moment, and it kind of makes sense that that would have come from my network, and it did. And I think all of my deals have, in some way, shape or form, and all my existing clients have come from my network, either first hand, they've reached out to me, or second or third hand. And that has been so powerful, and in fact it's led to an opportunity that I've recently agreed to with a venture capital organisation who have asked me to come on board and help run the commercial arm for their portfolio of companies. Again, this was a gentleman I didn't know 6 months ago. He was introduced to me by an ex-client who I worked with and sold to 8 years ago. So if that's not testament to how keeping a solid network and staying in touch with really good people that you admire and look up to, and how that can come full circle. And I hope to do the same for other people in the future.
Fantastic, because it's true, isn't it? Your network is your net worth.
Indeed.
I know it's a very used saying, but there is a huge element of truth, and you've just kind of said that. Do you think it's important to continuously grow your network?
Very much so. And I think thinking about LinkedIn, that's obviously somewhere where we all spend a lot of time, or if we're not, we should be, if network is important to what we do and how we do it. The way that speaking with another person or connecting with another person ultimately gives you access to their network overnight. And the way that the algorithm works is just incredibly impressive in terms of spreading that net across everybody else. I think it's also really important to nurture the network that you already have. So building your network, yes, completely. And I think that needs to be done in a mindful and considered manner to ensure that your network is of worth to you, but also, again, making sure that when you've connected with people, whether it's face-to-face or via WhatsApp groups that we may be members of, or via LinkedIn and a request in either direction, that we continue to nurture that relationship and ensure that they know why you're there and you know why they're there, because ultimately the nearbound example I gave you earlier, that can't happen if you don't know what everybody does around you and vice versa.
Amazing. So tell us a little bit more about you, Dale.
Okay.
I know, obviously, a little bit myself, but explain your journey of where you've come from and where you are today.
Wow. Okay. Where to start? I think I'll start at the start of my corporate career. I think my first paid jobs, as it were. So I left university after a year. I don't have a degree. I ended up in a sales role.
What made you leave university?
It was a series of personal circumstances that meant I couldn't stay, and it would have been very difficult to continue. And I made the decision that I need to leave and get a job and start my life, ultimately. And that's what I did. And the first job I fell into, reading in a local paper, because this was almost, the internet had just kicked off back in 2000, showing my age a little bit there, but was a sales role. And that was my first foray into a pure 100% sales job. It was very daunting as an 18-year-old. And the energy market had just been deregulated, and some chap had this great idea to bring everyone together and go out to sell to small businesses and change their energy supply to N-Power. So we went out and we had a postcode each to go hit, and we had a number of order forms, and it was 100% commission based. That was the job. Yeah, it was very daunting, but I learned a lot very, very quickly. Not just the people I was around, but being put into situations that were alien to me, that were outside of my comfort zone, and I had to adapt quickly. And I think that's something that's very much held me in good stead. I held another of other sales roles across the coming years after then, and then I fell into telecoms. So I worked for Telefonica, which was O2 when I originally joined them, for 10 years. And that's how I ended up in the space that I left last year. Which was the HR and SaaS space, working with and around and for Workday as well. So quite the journey.
So you had a lot of roles whereby if you didn't put the effort in, you weren't going to get paid when it's commission based. So therefore you've learned a hell of a lot about sales, right?
Yes, and For me, sales comes down to people skills. That may sound cliche. I think, as consumers, all been on the end of what we might feel like a shady or forceful or aggressive sales tactics, especially in the enterprise. That's not going to get you anywhere. And it's all around being structured and thought out and having a plan and doing your due diligence. That's where the hard work is, to work with your prospects as well.
And what about mindset? There's a lot of people that get stuck with sales that feel really icky when they're trying to sell something, but then there's a certain mindset that says if you're not selling, you're not serving. What do you think about that?
It's true, and I think it works both ways. I think the ickiness, and I agree, and when I spoke at one of your previous events, that was my opener, that this is how the word sales sometimes makes people feel, and it's because of their experience on the receiving end as a consumer, in my opinion, as a consumer. And also receiving a million LinkedIn messages all day selling things to me that have no relevance and being bombarded with. So this is where it comes back to that awareness. So sales and service, again, they come hand in hand. Talking about the neighbound piece in a little bit more, the cheapest way to sell is to sell to your existing customers, right?
Sure.
So that kind of customer success piece that I mentioned at the start of this video is key. And that brand equity will continue to serve you in good stead as you go forward as well. But we're all salespeople. Yes, there are some people in maybe slightly larger organizations that get paid the commission, and they're the ones that, have to work the late nights and do the hard graft. But we sell as a team. All businesses sell as a team. And I always talk about it in terms of we did this, we did that, even currently as a solo founder, because I'm not doing all of this on my own. So my answer to your question is for people to kind of sit back a little bit and try not to think of it as, what words do I need to say? What tactics do I need to employ? And be a little bit more natural. Doing some homework, or as I call it, informed discovery. So who are you trying to sell to, and really understanding why you've answered the way that you've answered, and build a value proposition that works.
Yeah. And remember that you're serving them rather
Exactly.
than it's serving over selling, right?
Correct. Nobody is going to buy something they don't want. Okay? And it might be, somebody might be out there saying, well, yes, that's not true. I bought a pen from Clinton's when they offered it to me last week and I didn't want one. Slightly different scenario. The cost of that sale is £1 and it was an impulse purchase, and that's obviously why it's done at the till. However, business to business, business to consumer, whether it's a service, so coaching, or something like what you do, or something like what I do, people will not enter into that if they don't want it and they don't see the value. It's our job as sellers to help them understand the value. And you know what? Any salesperson knows this, but non-salespeople might not. Disqualification is just as important as qualification. If you don't feel your product or service can serve somebody, that's fine. You're not going to sell to everybody. Walk away and spend your time elsewhere.
On the subject of sales, I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Sure.
If this is a generalized question, because the listeners here will be running all sorts of different businesses. But if a business owner, small business owner, asked you what's the best tips you can give them to make as much money as they can in 30 days, in a month, what would you advise them?
And so to clarify, is that using their existing product or service?
That's going to be part of your advice, because
Right.
you were just saying
Understand.
the easiest way is to use your existing client base, so I would guess that would be part of it.
Yes, but I would split it into two ways. So the first is, if you take just what you do today as a business owner, whoever's listening, right, product or service, I would look at what we've done before. I say we're having this conversation together, right? Where have you sold? Who has bought from you, and why? Also, why have people not bought from you? It's as important to understand why you win as why you lose. You need to then tell that story in a very clear and concise and succinct way. This is what my product or service does, using the examples from your existing customer base, and then you quantify those qualitative results. So this enabled business ABC to do X, Y, Z. Okay, that equates to this much in pounds, and there's ways that you can do that. Then it's targeting those customers that you've just worked out are your profitable and easy to live with customers. The customers that end up having the big discounts and spend the least with you usually take the most amount of your time. So that's another thing to consider in qualification. And I would have a targeted campaign with those customers, because you know that the margin's there, they know that the value's there, so that the story will land. The second part is how can you diversify what you do? So again, if we take from a service perspective, looking back at the research that you've just done around the story and why people have bought from you, doing more research around the market, maybe your competitors or what else you're just seeing around your network. What else can you do that would be complementary to that? And is there a way that you can add that into your offering swiftly, if we only have 30 days, but also quite quickly and cheaply? So maybe that's bringing somebody in from an outsourced perspective if it's a service, or it may be a partnership with another company from a product point of view. Bundling that together will only enhance and strengthen the value proposition if you've done the research in the right way. And obviously, if we only have 30 days, then there could be some incredible offers that could be done. The third part I'm going to add on this at the end is you're not going to close the business after 30 days. So you want to make all of this as sticky as possible. So there may be an early offer that you want to bring people in to sign up for that 30 days, but you want that to enable them to stay with you and it be more painful for them to leave than not on an ongoing basis.
And I love the word bundles, because you can bundle up your offers and give somebody, if they're already your customer and they really like you, then they might want to buy. They're more likely actually to buy more from you if they already trust you. So if you bundle up your offers, then it's great. What would you recommend in terms of systems for monitoring sales, for really logging and keeping an eye on KPIs, sales? What would you suggest?
A CRM is a must. There are lots of tools out there. I've done some research for a number of clients of mine who have said, we don't use anything, we use Excel or Google Sheets, can you help us? HubSpot is always going to be my go-to. They have a free offering that has amazing functionality that you can get going within an hour. I ran that for 3 months at the start of my business for £0. I'm still using HubSpot. I've upgraded twice, so I am paying the money now. And I'm a HubSpot partner, so I have good access to them, and I can, I very often recommend that my clients use HubSpot. The integrations with things like Xero or QuickBooks and Asana and other tools all work natively.
And you don't need Zapier.
You don't, but you can use it if you wish. But it's got a lot of native integrations that you can use. It's for somebody that might not have a sales background and they're wanting to do what you said. Okay, I need to start tracking what I'm doing and what KPIs do I need, etc. Again, having a CRM will help you focus your mind a little bit, because there'll be delivered reports, for example, that you can use, and they'll be always looking at the right things, whether it's deal age, margin, sales stages. That whole process around sales stages is very, very useful. And that process is just so key.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different CRMs that do different things to explore as well.
Yes.
Lots of people in my circles are shouting about Go High Level. Have you got, what are your thoughts on that? Have you got much experience with Go High Level?
As a tool?
As a CRM?
Never heard of it.
No way.
Nope. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Scrap that. As a fractional CMO working with various companies, what is a common obstacle that you find people struggling with, and how do you tackle that?
Sure. If I think the clients that get the most value from me are those that are founder-led sales organizations, and there's a person or a group of people who have created a business, they've had an idea and they've gone to market. Fast forward 2 or 3 years down the line, and they've kept the lights on, they're making money, and it's brilliant. Everything's going, they're hiring staff, but they've never done sales before because they're product people or they're tech people or they're consulting people or something else, and they don't know what to do. Enter Dale. The point really is that I can help them build a sales organization from scratch and a function. So we're just, building and implementing a CRM, and all the data and reporting and metrics and processes that sit behind that is just one of those many pillars. And the value that they get from me is the rigor and the eyes on things that they don't have eyes on, plus obviously the experience of running hundreds of sales cycles. But for me, it's around enabling and empowering them and upskilling them. So this may be that there's one of many founders that wants to take on the commercial aspect of the relationship with their prospects and customers. I will work very closely with that person to make sure that I can impart as much knowledge as possible before my engagement ends.
So would you say you step in when a company is really ready to grow and expand massively? That's when you step in?
Either that, or they want to avoid a pain point. So it's an opportunity they want to grasp and they need help, or they're about to miss out on an opportunity. Maybe they're going into a new market. Maybe they've just received funding. Maybe they've acquired a company or been acquired, or maybe they've just simply expired and exhausted their network in terms of people that they can call to sell their services and products to, and they need to go out more broadly. What I'm not going to do is fill the top of the funnel. There are agencies that can do that and do all the email campaigns. For me, it's more around the strategy on what are we doing, what is the messaging, what's the value proposition, what are the go-to-market channels, how do we set our pricing, and everything that surrounds that.
Now, one common occurrence I keep coming across when I'm interviewing successful entrepreneurs, that many of them have left school early, or in your case, left university early. And it's really a really common thing. So I'd love to hear what your views are in the current education system, because we've both got kids.
Wow. Yeah.
Is it worth going to university? Is it, what do you think of schooling?
What a question. And as you said, I have a 2-year-old. So this question has been very much front of mind recently. My wife and I talk about schooling a lot. So university is one thing. My view 5 years ago would have been, if you wanted to have a role and a job and a profession and a career that requires a degree, maybe medicine or law, then it may make sense. I think I'm changing my mind a little bit. And another thing to add into the context of my opinion really is that I turned 18 in 2000, which was the kind of internet revolution. We had all of these kind of career aptitude tests, going through secondary school. And all of those jobs probably still exist, but most of the jobs today did not exist back then. And one of the things I wrote down when preparing for this, and I'm going to use this as an opportunity to bring it up, is you can't be what you can't see. It's one of the few maxims that I live by and believe in a lot, and it's actually come up in conversation more and more recently. So because we didn't know what the world was going to be and what the change of the internet revolution was going to bring, we couldn't plan for anything.
No. One thing is always certain, and that is change.
Correct. So university, I don't know. When Logan is 18, hopefully a little bit before, we'll see where the world lies then. In terms of attempting to answer your question a bit more broadly around the education system, I don't fully believe in it. I don't feel it set me up for success. I had to find my own way, and I have friends and ex-schoolmates that do agree. And I don't know if that's going to be the best way for Logan, right? So does that mean homeschooling? Does that mean something else? It's going to be a blend, is my current view, because there's so much that I wasn't taught that I now know that I needed when I went out into the big wider world.
Agree, me too. I used to be really jealous of many of my friends that went to university and did a degree, and I felt back then that I was left out because I didn't have a degree. But now I have a totally different opinion on that. I think it's all down to motivation, mindset, and there's so much education out there that you can get yourself depending on where you want to go, what you want to do, and that's where it lies.
Living in the best time. Somebody said this a while ago, but literally everything that man has ever learnt is available today for free.
Yeah.
So do we need to go to university? Half the Harvard Business School syllabus is on YouTube for free.
So you can get it for free, or you can go and get yourself into oodles of debt.
Yep, lose 3 years and learn the way that somebody else thinks you should learn.
Interesting, hey?
Very.
So Dale, what is more important to you, money or fulfillment?
Great question. It's definitely fulfillment, but it wasn't always. So, you've spoken around some of the trends that you've seen from people that you've spoken with that have done well around their schooling and how that went. I came from a relatively poor single parent family, and we never had any money. And I think that was a massive driver for me to want some money, because I didn't want to perpetuate that. Right? I wanted to have a different life, and if, as and when I had kids, I wanted to have a different life for them. So that was something that drove me. However, I had a I guess, a mini breakdown about 5 years ago, primarily driven by work as well as a number of other circumstances. And that really allowed me to stop and take stock and consider what is genuinely important to me. And the events that transpired last year that led to me creating my own business and surrounding myself by good people as well. That's something I also wanted to bring up today is I always tried to do everything myself. And I had an epiphany 2 years ago, whether it was just turning 40, I don't know. But I started to surround myself with people that are good at what they do, whether it's nutritionists, strength coaches, business coaches, career coaches, executive coaches, etc. That really enabled me to put a mirror up to myself, but also get an experienced third-person view of, am I telling myself the right story, or am I telling myself what I want to hear? And I was really tested around what is important to you, and the results were autonomy and creativity. So that's what gives me fulfillment, and that's what I won't get working in a corporate job.
Amazing answer, Dale. Thank you. You kind of touched on my next question, which is, I think that we have to go through failure to find success, or another expression, we're forged in the fire. And I was going to ask you, what's the hardest thing you've ever been through, or what's perhaps something that's gone wrong that's then formed you into the person, you know, the stronger version of you? And would that be what you just touched on?
I think so. 3 years after that episode, if you will, me and my wife lost our first son, which was incredibly difficult.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. And that has changed me. And it took a long time to work out that is the case, and that I am now a different person, and I react in different ways. And that sits with me, right? So that's tough. I alluded to earlier, I think some of the challenges that I had when I was 18 and left to go to uni on my own, that was an incredibly daunting time, and very isolating. And that was definitely a forged in the fire moment, because I had to pick everything up and just deal with it. So I think those 3 incidents definitely are the big 3 that have helped me be the person I am today.
And for someone that's used to doing things by yourself, as you said you were before, that moment with your wife, did that pull you apart, or did it bring you closer together?
It brought us closer together, but I realised that we are different people and we're individuals, and we deal with it in different ways. So the dichotomy to a point of, because it wasn't an overnight miscarriage, we knew that Dylan wasn't well. So we had to kind of live with him and all the tests over a period, and we knew that at some point this was going to happen, and everybody's symptoms got worse, and that's what happened. I had to be there for Amy during that period and be the rock and support her, and it was, you know, her body, and it was incredibly difficult for her. The floodgates came down for me afterwards, right, when we came home that day and left him at the hospital. And I'm not saying she doesn't struggle, she does in her own way, but, you know, I have episodes where it's just, I can't get it out of my head, and it's very difficult, and I need to go back to things that I find strength in. And that self-awareness, both from a personal and professional perspective, was something that, you know, I kind of wrote down in preparation for today is super important, I feel.
Yeah, and it's something that, I mean, that's huge, right?
Yep.
And is it something you will ever heal from?
No, I've learned that that's not the case. The best analogy I've ever heard is it's like a balloon in a box, and when it happens, it's fully inflated and it's pushing on the button on the side, on the anxiety button, on the panic button, on the grief button. And slowly the balloon starts to shrink and it bounces around inside the ball. And every now and then it hits the button and it gets smaller and smaller, but it'll never disappear. That makes a lot of sense. The tough thing is not knowing when the button's going to get pressed, right? And that can happen at any moment. And, you know, Logan now knows about Dylan, and, you know, he will say some things which sometimes are absolutely lovely, but sometimes they just floor me.
Yeah. Do you have a strategy that you use when that button gets pushed?
Yes, I talk to him in any way that I can. I want to be near him best I can, whether that's with his shells and his urn at home, or I go to the crematorium, which was the last place that we were together, or I distract myself in a healthy way, right? Whether it's being outside in nature, moving my body, those things always usually help me get some clarity with whatever's going on. And this, again, it comes back to the self-awareness. You know, it's a journey to understand what those things are that help you get out of those moments as well.
You and your wife must be incredibly close and strong to get through this. So
We are, and we've been together for 20 years almost now, and we're just two halves.
amazing. Are you similar or are you different?
Very different. And I love that. Of course, it has its issues and challenges at times, but 9 times out of 10, it's very complementary. She makes me want to be a better person in the right ways, and she's just always there for me. She gives me the love that I've always wanted.
Which brings us back to the concept of the people that you surround yourself with are so important in life and in business. So to be successful, what would you be your tips about the people that you surround yourself with?
My number one tip, and I've said this a number of times, is don't be the smartest person in the room. I don't like being the smartest person in the room. I'm always looking as a sponge for that input, that motivation, that aspiration, that inspiration. So again, when it comes to self-awareness, I'm going to bring it up again, working out where your weak spots are, if you want to call them. You know, one of the things you asked me about is people's building their dream life. And I wrote 2 things down. One is working out what you're good at and working out what you enjoy. If you can find the cross-section between those 2, you're in a very good place. But that, again, requires a very critical assessment through self-awareness and or coaching, which I also recommend.
Or bring a fractional.
Exactly.
Yeah. Amazing. So, thank you for answering that question.
Of course.
That was my next question. But a final question, Dale. Let's go back to networking.
Yes.
What are your top tips in terms of networking, finding the right people to surround yourself with to help you grow and to stay inspired?
You have to put yourself out there, and I don't mean that metaphorically. And there's a sales angle to this as well. You never know where something is going to come from. So many times I've made a phone call to somebody that maybe we didn't have a call scheduled or a next step or something else, and they answer the phone and go, I was just thinking about you, Dale. This thing just happened, and I was thinking about our phone call and that I needed to reach out to you. Now, I'm not a believer in fate, but it's about being front of mind, A, and B, people need to be clear again on what you do and why you're important and how you can help them, so that when those conversations take place, or somebody leaves a meeting, goes to the water cooler and goes, who's that person around the thing, and we need to do the thing, they know it's you, and they think of your name first, and you become synonymous with what you're good at and what you enjoy. Because if you don't enjoy it, that passion and enthusiasm doesn't come out either. And again, going back to the you can't be what you can't see concept, meeting more people that aren't part of your existing network. And again, this is something that I had to do last year when I set the business up, because I wasn't planning to work with people that I'd worked with previously. I went into a whole different sphere. I was turning up at events on my own with a business name that nobody had a clue what it was about, what a fractional CRO even means, and having conversations with people. And it became very clear early doors there was a lot of education to do, and I kind of wanted to take that on my shoulders. So don't think I don't need to speak to this person. Just be as visible as you can. And with a sales lens, I'm going to say path of least resistance. It's a great selling tip, right? Buyer enablement, make it easy for people to buy from you. Make it easy for people to know you, to find you, to understand what you do, because that is in your control. Because that will do the work for you when you're not in the room having those conversations with people.
Absolutely. Your company name is Trinity Hawk.
Correct.
Why Trinity Hawk?
Excellent question. The short version is that usually I went onto a thesaurus online and started putting in some keywords around kind of what I do. And I wanted 2 words so that they can look good on the page, and I didn't want anything longer than 4 syllables because it might get a bit verbose from then. So I thought about Trinity as me, my clients and their customers, and that kind of perfect triangle and that working relationship. That left me with a single syllable. I put in sell, and hawking is actually a verb rather than the bird, which is an old colloquialism for selling.
Ah,
So Trinity Hawk was born.
excellent.
The logo wasn't intentional this way, but there's obviously 3 chevrons, which is a kind of a nod to my motorsport interests. It kind of looks like a hawk if you look at it with the head, wings, and tail as well. But I love it, and my good friend Caroline was who's very talented, did all of that for me. So thank you, Caroline.
Excellent. Well, congratulations on everything you do, Dale.
Thank you.
You're inspiring. Do you have any final words for the listeners today? Top tips for business owners, entrepreneurs to get the most out of their business?
So a lot of what we spoke around does come back to mindset. So there was another maxim that I wrote down, which was sometimes you have to take what's yours, which is from a film, actually, Coach Carter. If anyone's seen it, it's an incredible film. It might sound a bit aggressive, but when I heard that and applied it to my life, especially in the corporate world where you're waiting for other people to help you, you need to go do it for yourself. So my first advice is have that self-awareness and mentality. The second piece is surround yourself by the right people.
And you can do that with networking.
Spark.
Dale, thank you so much.
My
It's
pleasure.
been
Thank you, Jess.
wonderful to have you here today. So, yeah, thank you ever so much.
My pleasure.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well
Happy with
done.
that?
Yeah, that was brilliant. Well done. You gave some great advice there. You got yourself and what you do across,
Yep.
and we got your name in as well.
Yep.
So I thought I mentioned Trinity Hawk here. I didn't need to mention that. So yeah, good. Are you happy
Perfect.
with it?
Yeah, I am.
Good stuff.
Enjoyed that.
Yeah, and like I enjoy just having these questions here, just in case I need them.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
generally,
You just go,
go
with
with
it.
the flow. Yeah, and you handled it perfectly.
Thank
so
you.
yeah,
Good.
stuff. Thank you, Dale. All good.
Pleasure.
I'll let you
Thank
go.
you, David.
Anything?
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. Anything you need to say? No, all good.
When you putting these out things, I know you said earlier that
Yeah.
you were
So
bulking the content. Which
yeah,
makes sense.
exactly. So really, I think it will be launching mid-June. Oh, bless you, mid to late June. I don't want to rush with the launch because I want to make sure I've got enough to be putting one out every week, and potentially I'm just asking a mentor in this subject whether I actually need to decide the chapters, because I'm going to have 12 in each chapter. Because the thing is some of the chapters are kind of mixing in a little bit, so that might not be a thing in the long run, but I think it will be. I'd like it to be so that people will go, oh, I want to dip into the successful entrepreneurs,
Yeah,
and
gotcha. Cool.
so mid-June. But in the meantime, as they're being editing, as I'm sure you know, editing takes like flipping ages, but as that happens, we'll start to cut shorts out, and then we can put clips of those on social media,
Teasing.
just to as teasers.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Can I get that picture when you send it to Jess as well that you took?
Yes,
of
I'll
us?
send it
I'll
over
find
to
today
you.
and,
Yeah.
this is coming.
I
Great
took a
stuff.
few during the while you guys
Excellent.
were chatting as well.
Yeah,
it's
thank
good
you,
stuff.
David.
So,
Good stuff.
Awesome. First podcast down.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Exactly.
First one of today.
For you at least.
Yeah,
You're going to be shattered tonight.
Oh no. I mean, tonight I'm out. I'm going to see Robin Sharma tonight. You know him? He's a monk. The monk with the Ferrari. Went to see him
Like all
speak in
monks.
London.
Exactly.
It's why I haven't got enough prep to do Thursday, but I've said I'll go out with a friend, so we're going to do that.
Well, listen, it's been an absolute honour that you asked me to come on. So thank you so much.
And thanks for sharing. I hope you're okay with sharing.
Of course,
and,
always. It's always a pleasure to talk about it.
Yeah.
I don't get to do it often enough.
You never know who you're going to help.
Exactly.
Particularly on a podcast, sharing things like that. You help them inspire. So I may well focus a little bit on that on the shorts, if
Yeah,
that's okay
please.
with you. Yeah.
Absolute pleasure.
Great. I know it's about business and entrepreneurs, but we can go
Cheers. And you, sir?
Right, so I'll just have a quick look on my phone. It looks like he's not here yet. So we could actually do a little bit of filming. Let's just have a quick look and see. Yeah, I had a piece of advice, which was to keep the cameras rolling when you finish, because you never know what kind of finish you're going to get. Yeah, nothing from Lee. So, do you have the text number for Callum?
I have them on WhatsApp.
Oh, he's just posted on social media.
Dude, Callum has.
Yeah, I think. Or that, no, that could be someone else.
That's me.
Oh, is that you? Okay.
Yeah, I posted a picture of you guys chatting.
Hi.
Oh, there we go.
Hi.
Perfect.
Has,
Oh, he's on.
We were
Lee
just talking
come?
about you.
Yeah, Dale's just gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
Has
done.
Lee arrived?
Yes, Lee's right.
Great. Okay,
Perfect.
cool. Shall we let him
Okay.
in?
We hit
I
stop.
just stopped the recording and stop from there as well. So,
Perfect.
and then when we get ready, just hit start again.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Great
All
stuff.
good. Feel like I'm a little more comfortable this time, so being a bit more assertive in the whole process.
Yeah.
Yeah, that went alright.
Looks good. It looks really good.
This is much better.
Yes.
This is a much better setup. I don't know. I think it gives a little bit extra oomph to the room, but we can try with that. Yeah, it seemed alright.
The yellow chair is still a little bit.
Is it? I can zoom in on it just enough to probably pull it out and
But nobody would know what it is.
yeah, no, that was good. I've got a yeah. We're stuck.
Okay, cranky.
I'm David. Nice to meet you.
Lee. Hey, this is awesome.
Yeah, so just watch the wires and you're going to go and sit over there. We'll just put it on silent either or.
Yeah, I get alarms and all kinds of things.
Great. So yeah, all good. I mean, we have another one of those planned on Thursday
Really?
in Birmingham, though. You have to go. You'd
Ah.
have to. That's the thing. Yeah,
I
because
saw yeah, if it wasn't Birmingham, I might.
yeah, yeah. But I'll do another London one for sure. Because and I'm going to do it every quarter with like in the same way with my members that we do a quarterly meetup lunch.
Yeah, it was good. I met two
Uh,
new brothers that night. I got Uncle B.
He's great,
Uncle
isn't
B's
he?
good. I'm a new customer.
Yeah, he's just such a great guy. He said that you purchased immediately, and he just thought
I
that was
was going to go back to
brilliant.
vegan, but
Oh, really? Were you vegan once?
yeah, I was
Yeah.
quite strict.
Was that
And
when
then-
you were all into yoga?
Yeah, I'm still into yoga now.
Yeah, good. Good. to
But no,
hear.
no, I
Are
felt
you comfortable there? Do you want to? Are you going to want to move the chair? Are you close enough to the table for wherever you want to be?
Yeah, just sit where you feel comfortable, where
Okay.
you can access your prosecco, so that so that David can make sure we're all in shot.
Good, is it?
And I'm going to show you where I'm going to be running a.
Could
I
you
think.
scoot a little bit and like maybe just get the whole chair on the floor?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Sure.
So I'm talking of yoga. I'm going to be running like a retreat, a business retreat there, where we make with that guy I was
Oh,
just
it's
telling you
UK.
about. Yeah, this is UK, but then there's another one in Barcelona and another one in Greece that I'm looking at. But I'm just starting off in the UK just to warm everyone up to the idea, because I've done loads of yoga retreats, but I've never done a mixed business retreat. So this is the one. That's the one in Barcelona. You can get about
Nice.
15 people in there. But there's a really beautiful one on a Greek island that I love. So I'm looking at those at the moment, which I think is exciting. Yeah, because my next one is in Verona in the Dolomites. I think I've mentioned that to you before. And you're off to Ibiza soon, or have you been?
Monday.
Monday, great.
I cannot wait.
I bet. How long are you going for?
5 days.
Okay, great. Where are you staying? In the north?
Sant Eulia, I think that's what it's called.
Okay.
Really nice.
Yeah, I bet.
So that's a bit of a spiritual trip.
Wow. How many's going?
4. So it's a private a mushroom retreat.
Nice. Okay. So you're going to have some experiences then. Cool.
Yeah, and with some really cool people as well.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Brilliant.
Yeah, I cannot wait for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did it last May. Yeah, very, very good shaman.
Send me a video. Sounds fun.
It was profound, let's say that.
So last time we did one, we were there, but we figured out is we're doing it Diary of a CEO style today, with the table and whatnot on the
I like it a
background.
lot. Yeah, I like the.
Yeah, no worries.
We've done. Yeah.
Just you guys keep chatting.
Hello.
Hello.
1, 2,
My
3.
voice is quite deep
Can you hear both?
sometimes.
Just have a normal
Yeah.
chat.
So, are you also going to go out partying in Ibiza, or is it just purely spiritual?
No, this is purely spiritual.
In a villa?
No alcohol. 72 hours before.
Okay, wow. Are you fasting as well?
I have been fasting this week, so I've got so out of shape. Oh my god, I'm so out of shape. So I'm back fasting, back at the gym.
It's just tougher when you get past a certain age, really. That you have to work like 10 times as hard.
Yeah,
I
I can
find.
easily lose 1 to 2 kilos a week if I just intermittent fast and go to the gym.
Yeah, I
So
used to be able
with
to.
good discipline, which is one of those daily battles, I can do well.
Cool. Are you ready for us to start, David? Okay. All right. Before we start, is there anything you want to tell me, or want me to ask you? Or
Like confessions.
yeah.
I did hear your message today about net worth. Rather not answer that one.
Yeah.
Um,
I know. I just thought that was a bit much. I wasn't
Mm.
planning to, because it's a bit probing,
Yeah,
really.
so if I was living outside the UK, I wouldn't mind.
Yeah. No, it's a bit probing. I mean, Kane's a bit like, they like to ask questions that will shock. Hence, they work with Rob. So, yeah,
yeah.
don't worry, I wasn't. Are you okay with me asking you if you're a millionaire?
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Okay, great. Okay.
And of course, if
Thank you.
anything goes sideways or whatever, obviously we can edit this afterwards, so don't worry about it too much.
Yeah, that's the cool thing.
Yeah.
The idea is just have a relaxed conversation.
Okay.
If you really if you want something to be edited, you just clap, and then he'll know when he's editing it that's the bit where
Okay.
we've got to cut something out. And yeah, and as I've mentioned in the WhatsApp group, I've got the 4 different chapters coming. So it sounds like you fit into all of them.
Yeah, it's a bit blurred. It's a bit blurry.
That's okay.
I was looking forward to some of your networking events, actually.
Yeah, great.
Literally just got invited to an online one, but yeah, it's not my kind of thing. I like face to face.
Yeah, Yeah, we'll speak about that in a minute. If that's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Good.
Right.
So we'll aim
So-
for 35, 40 minutes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Anything up to 45 is my.
Well, I'll do like I did last time.
Yeah. I mean, the next one is at 1:30. So
Books.
Yeah, we've
yes.
got,
Yeah, they're interesting books. He's got a black box full of like treats in there. And is it like
No mushrooms.
yeah, there's some hash cakes in there just to
Okay.
get you talking.
Now we're talking. I'm coming back.
Okay, right.
we're not on Joe Rogan. Although we could be.
Yeah.
Hi, Lee. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast and welcome to the Networking Spark. Love to hear a little bit about you. First of all, may I ask you, Lee, are you a millionaire?
Yes, I am.
Amazing. And I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey from where you came from, right from the beginning, to where you are today.
Wow, that's a deep question. So I was brought up on Parsons Mead, which is a very poor council estate back in the early 70s. So it was West Croydon. I don't regret anything. When I look back, it was actually a magical childhood. It was one of these neighborhoods you could go out and mix with everybody. My son doesn't have that. Now we live in a much more affluent area. We don't have the same
Freedom.
freedom, same connections. We're a lot more paranoid about a child. So I actually loved, when I look back, I actually loved growing up. It was a very poor neighborhood, but we never wanted for anything. My dad was a very hardworking person back in construction. So yeah, it was really incredible. When I look back now, I took my son there 2 weeks ago to show him how privileged he is now to live in a nice house, nice neighborhood, the things we have, and to kind of show him. It almost looks like a prison now when I go and visit where we're brought up. But like I say, it was quality of life. We were always out playing, being mischievous, but it was connection, which a lot of people don't have nowadays growing
No.
up, which is really sad.
What did your son think as he viewed where you used to live? What were his comments?
I think he thought it was actually okay. Didn't shock him. I tried to have that kind of bonding father-son moment. Please appreciate, what you've got right now. You complain, his gaming PC's not powerful enough. Back then, of course, there was no technology. It was, going hunting through alleyways, and it was a very, very different upbringing. And it does kind of stress me out a little bit as a parent, seeing the disconnection they have nowadays. Too much technology, not enough personal connection. So it's a little bit frustrating for me as a parent. But I think he appreciated it.
Sure. It's a tricky one as a parent because this is their world. And so if you try and pull them back to your world when you were growing up, they are therefore not going to be as knowledgeable as what their peers are doing. For instance, if you're constantly pulling them away from screens when all of their peers are doing it, that is their world. So as much as we were told to go and read a book, we can't do that when we parent our children, so much so these days.
Yeah, constant learnings. You never stop learning in life. So I try. I restrict his time on the machine. I try and get him into reading books. And like you say, it's a battle because he sees what his friends are doing. They're online till 11 o'clock, midnight, thinking what the parents doing. And, I think we're pretty tough compared to most parents. We're trying to get him a balance, physical paper books. It's really tough. It's really tough. So I feel for any parent. I've got an IT company. I've been IT savvy for 20 plus years. So I've got a little bit of an edge, but I really feel for parents who don't understand technology and have to look after their kids because they're so smart.
And it's telling when some of the people that run the people that have invented like Apple and computers and with their children, they do not let them go near it, from what I've heard, and that is quite telling.
Yeah, I looked into that as well. I think it was Steve Jobs who said be really careful about the time you allow your kids on these platforms. They're highly addictive. I believe they're programmed intentionally to be addictive. If you look at YouTube Shorts, they're so addictive. They're constantly one after the other. The speed people record them at, it's all psychological tactics to keep you highly addicted. You just get on a train, you see adults addicted.
Everyone is glued to their phone, aren't they?
It's a huge problem. The dopamine effect it's giving people. If you're not aware of it, it's a big problem.
Yeah, it's quite scary as to where
Very
we're going,
scary.
because we've got screens, phones. We've started off, with these massive phones, and then they're getting smaller. Now there's glasses being invented and talks of chips. So it's quite scary to think of where we're going. But again, one thing is always certain in life, and that is change.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, I think the danger becomes when you're not conscious, and a lot of people aren't conscious of what they're doing.
Yes.
For example, my father is 80. So we lost. My mother passed away last year, and since then, he's highly addicted to his phone. He's on dating sites, and he's looking at videos and images of these women, and he will wake up in the morning, and for 6 hours straight, he will not have his breakfast. He will sit there for 2 hours through lunch because he's so addicted to his phone. And I'm really worried about the future, which is why I tend to swerve the other way. And I love switching my phone off on the weekend. I love going for walks. I love reading a physical book. I love meditating, anything to find that balance. And a lot of people don't have any of that balance. And I think going forward, we're going to see a lot more problems in society unless people embrace the alternative routes and going back to nature.
Yeah, because people are almost becoming unconscious in many ways, as in they're addicted to their phones so much, they rely on them so much, that then they cannot be by themselves with their own thoughts. I've met a lot of people that are scared, or that cannot. As a yoga teacher myself, I'm always trying to bring people into meditation, because the purpose of yoga is to prepare body and mind for meditation. But there's so many people I come across that are just scared of being quiet by themselves and being in their heads.
I was gonna say the same. People are so afraid of silence and peace and calm because they're not comfortable with themselves. And I think for me personally, the key to happiness is being comfortable with yourself. I love silence. I love solitude, and just as much I love going out partying, as you know. But I think it's a really key ingredient of happiness is just to sit still and not only collect your thoughts, is getting those thoughts out of your head, because we've all got these voices inside of our head, and without yoga and meditation, I think we're in a whole world of mess, personally.
So have you always been happy sitting with yourself and being quiet? Let's go back to your journey where you were brought up in a council estate, but very, very happy. What happened next? What's been your journey to where you are today?
I think, like many people, I think we are quite robotic in nature. And when I say that to people, they really don't like it. But if you think about it, when you go and brush your teeth in the morning, you're not consciously picking up the toothbrush, you're not consciously brushing, you're running a program. We effectively have habits and programs running through our brain. So I instinctively just followed what I saw in front of me, which was my uncle. He was the wealthiest in the family. He was an accountant. My grandmother was a jeweler. So I left school very early at 16. I was quite disruptive at school. They didn't want me to stay on and do A-levels. I was too disruptive in the class, having fun. So I went straight into the jewelry business and worked for a company called Ratner's, which was quite famous at the time because he famously came out and said all of his jewelry was crap. So quite quickly I was made redundant as the company folded. And then I thought I'd made it big because I was recruited to a top 10 law firm in London. And I was just an admin assistant. But for me, from where I was brought up, going to work it was Barbican, a beautiful building with hundreds of people, that was a big change.
How old were you then?
I was 18 years old.
And that must have been wow.
It was wow. And it was £12,000 salary. But it was a massive wow back then. It was like, wow, someone seen something good in me. I'd had probably about 20, 30 jobs before that.
Wow. What age did you start working?
16.
Okay.
So I worked for the jewelers probably for about a year. I was assistant manager for the store, then I started working for civil service. I was doing data entry jobs. I can't even count how many jobs I've had in my career, but I was always searching for something, and it was much later in life that I actually found what I was looking for, which obviously we'll come on to.
Mm.
But working for a big company in London was fascinating. I loved it. There was loads of secretaries for this business, so it was a great lifestyle move. And then
Because of the secretaries?
well, yeah. I was young. I was, what's the word? Hormonal.
Okay.
So yeah, it was really fun. And then I made friends with people in the finance department quite randomly, and they advised I'd go and do an accountancy course, which quite appealed to me my uncle. So I studied AAT. I did about 1.5 years or 3 years. Again, it was a little bit too boring for my liking. I didn't like the learning. However, I learned some very good finance strategies, and then I can't remember how, but I became a programmer for this law firm, and then I quite quickly got headhunted by all the top 10 law firms in London for knowing this particular piece of American software. And then, yeah, everything led to another step. I'd become a consultant, so that's when I learned about being self-employed, because I couldn't stand seeing the tax coming out my salary every month. I thought, who is this? Who is PAYE and who is NI? And that was a mind blower. Who are these people that are stealing money out of my paycheck?
Yeah.
So I quite quickly became self-employed consultant, then worked for an investment firm, and that was my last job, which was sometime around 1999, 2000. That was an investment firm who basically had billionaires as investors. They would go and buy shopping centres around the UK, redevelop them, and then sell them on. And I'm still friends with some of the people in that business today, because they really opened my eyes. And they allowed me a lot of freedom. I got on very, very well with them. It was a very small business, but they were very wealthy, completely different background to me. They were from Oxford, Cambridge. And somehow, it was like a little family working for them. I was DJing at the time, so there was lots of banter. And then they allowed me to create their website, and then I became their first. They became my first customer for my IT company.
Brilliant.
And that kind of is what propelled me into the
Yeah.
kind of normal business life, I guess.
Right. Would you say then that the people that you surrounded yourself then are really kind of, really propelled you into success, and that it's super important to be mindful of who you surround yourself with?
Yeah, actually, I've never thought about that, but that's a really good point. Yeah, that was definitely the launch pad to where I am today. Yeah, just being around people with a vastly different background, vastly wealthy. They're 15, 20 million pound houses in Mayfair. The office was next to Harrods. So I loved the location, loved working for them, but obviously didn't have the money I wanted. But yeah, 100%. Being around those people, seeing what they were doing, seeing how they're creating portfolios of companies and owning properties, that was like, wow, how can I get there?
Yeah. What do you think the difference is between those people at the top that you hung around with, mindset-wise, and what do you think the difference is, second question, between a millionaire and a billionaire?
I would say, I don't think it's education. I didn't learn anything at school that was useful for later life, which is what I teach my son now. I think it's who you surround yourself with. Ultimately, the people I was working for were in networks of people, because they were naturally in Oxford, Cambridge. They surrounded themselves with people that had family offices. It was just a boys' club, and I was welcomed into their world to a certain level, but I didn't have the knowledge that they did. But I think it's like everybody says, it's who you surround yourself with and what networks you're in. Networking is a huge part of where I am today.
Totally. Just going back to that though, what you said was a little bit contradictory from what I heard, in that these people you were hanging out with were from Oxford and Cambridge, so they had been through that whole school system, but then you said education wasn't part of it.
Well, from my perspective, I didn't go to a public school.
Yeah. And I have to say that every successful entrepreneur that I'm interviewing, they've all got the same story, as in they kind of dropped out of school or university and it didn't do anything for them. So I'd love to know about your thoughts on education and going to university. You having a son yourself, what are the conversations you're having there?
So my son is definitely at the moment taken after me. He doesn't want to go to university. That's more my thought process. However, I have a daughter who's 22. She is just about to finish university doing chemical engineering. So she has a career path ahead of her. And I've got to be careful because I think the first job she's going into, I think she's going to be underpaid. So I don't think there's a lot of difference between being an apprentice for a company and working your way up and doing university. The ceiling may be different, but in my personal view, I think university is only good for the social aspect. Again, it's who you meet there.
Your network again.
It is. It's all about network. The way I'm teaching my son is that I think it's a real problem. He's 12 years old, and I think Gen Z is what they're called. And I think unless you are earning multiples of hundreds of thousands of pounds in the future, you're going to be poor. That's my personal belief, because the middle class is being eroded at such a rapid pace at the moment. This is one of my kind of passions at the moment. I study lots of macroeconomics, and I think the Western world is in deep, deep trouble. We're in so much debt, which is why they're going to be raising taxes. They're basically taking small business owners and the middle class and punishing them for the government's own mistakes in spending our money and just wasting it. So I think going forward, people are going to have to think differently and do different things, because there's going to be a lot more poverty going forward. I'm a very positive, optimistic person, but I see dark days ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a huge culture of small business owners and the government really encouraging people to be running their own business. So do you think that's, there's something not very correct going on behind the scenes there? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. It's probably not popular. Probably not a popular opinion I have, but I'm very contrarian. I'm definitely anti-government as a person. I don't agree with a lot of government policies, especially in this country, and all, I would say all Western countries I study. There's a massive problem. For example, you go to countries like Dubai. They really encourage you to make money. There's huge tax incentives. The quality of life, you can argue it's all man-made. However, quality of life is very high there. Whereas in the UK, because they got themselves in debt, they're punishing the people for that. Constantly printing money. Everybody sees the cost of living, inflation. Real inflation is 10 to 15%, not the figures they pump out. So unless you have investments that are making fantastic returns, you're getting poorer every year, or every month, every quarter. So I think people really need to arm themselves with a lot of knowledge on how to navigate through where we're going to be over the next 5 to 10 years.
What's stopping you from moving to Dubai then?
My wife. I was ready. I've been studying this for 10 years. My father retired to Spain 18 years ago. I'm constantly studying. I'm a resident in Mexico. I was about to get residency in Dubai. Looking to get a passport in Brazil. I'm working on a passport in Italy.
Wow.
I think it's essential to have options.
Why Mexico?
Because it was one of the most free options during COVID. I was hugely against COVID. Again, possibly unpopular opinion. However, Mexico was amazing during COVID. It wasn't perfect. There was still some restrictions there, but it seemed like one of the better options.
Has that now changed?
No, I still think it's a good option. It's a very strong currency. Most currencies around the world are devaluing at such a high pace, but Mexico peso is actually performing really well. So it's a strong economy. So now I've got a residency there. I'm due to renew that in 2026. I'll get a 5-year residency, and then ultimately I'm looking for a passport there.
Great. What does the conversation go like with your wife when you're trying to persuade her to move?
I just try and show her some of the things that are happening in London. She absolutely loves London. She's from Brazil. If you speak, I go to Brazil quite a lot. And when you go to Brazil, they absolutely love England, because what they perceive as England is the royal family, the culture from what they see on TV. However, Great Britain, as much as I love it, is on a very fast downward spiral at the moment. And I don't see that changing for quite a long time.
Yeah.
So I just try and have conversations about things she's not really privy to. I mean, I study this day in, day out. So I see the statistics, I see what's going on. I travel up and down the country, I see how things are changing. So she gets it, but she's always like, one more year. We need to stay one more year. And I just see another year is quite dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Lee, you have a Brazilian wife. You're a millionaire. Do you feel like a winner?
Not really. Well, I don't regret anything in life. I'm very grateful for where I am. I'm very grateful for the people I've met that have got me where I am today. But I'm in a constant struggle to battle the forces that I see. You struggle most of your life to try and become a millionaire, and once you've got money, it's then a battle to protect it, because then you realize there's forces out there like inflation, like governments, who are constantly trying to take it away from you. So it's almost a bit of a worse struggle. It's a great battle to try and get wealth, and when you've got wealth, it's then another battle to try and retain it. So I'm diversified across multiple countries. So I think I'm well protected, but I'm always researching and looking at new options.
Do you think you're happier wealthy or poor?
Ooh. I don't think money makes the difference. Definitely money does not make the difference. It's actually quite stressful. The whole protection and strategy around protecting your wealth. So I think I'm happy when I'm surrounded by a good community. Doesn't matter whether you're poor or you're wealthy, because the journey to get money, I found happiness by being around the right people. Now I've got money, yes, it gives you more options and I can travel more, but it's definitely not the differentiator. It's about being around the right people, always. Yeah, doesn't matter where you are in your wealth journey, it's about being around people that make you happy.
Yeah, agree. Talking of people and being surrounded by the right people, what are your thoughts on networking? Do you prefer online, in person? What are your experiences, and any advice for those just stepping into the world of networking, or perhaps thinking about it? Because some people have a view of networking, that's going into this dusty old school hall with people shoving business cards at you and selling to you, or standing up and doing a little pitch. So what's your experience and thoughts on networking?
Ooh, well, I'm definitely not a good networker. I'm an introvert, quite shy at times, apart from when I've had a couple of glasses of champagne. So I've not been a great networker, but my network I've got now means everything. So being out of your comfort zone is definitely something I would encourage people to do. Some of the best times I've ever had is when I'm outside my comfort zone.
Getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Exactly that. So yeah, I think it's a key thing. No matter what you do, it's important to be surrounded by good people. The only way to do that is to go out and mix in uncomfortable environments. You can try the online option. I'm not a fan of it. I did try a cloud networking event recently, which was interesting because it was global. So it wasn't just London-based. It was a very good mixture of people. But I've always preferred face-to-face.
Have you got a specific moment in time, like a success story that came from networking?
I think probably from my mergers and acquisitions, I think that's what really propelled me, because every time I've been on stage, which makes me really uncomfortable, every time I'm on stage, people will come up to me and they will say, you know, you've really inspired me. I've been their mentor. And they've then become my mentors. It's the particular person in my life right now. He said I was his mentor that got him where he is today, but now he's ultimately my mentor because he's gone on and done some incredible things, incredible things. So now he's my mentor. So things like moments like that.
Yeah.
I think when people say they were looking up to me, but now I look up to them.
And you never know who you're going to be helping by speaking out and getting into a place where you feel uncomfortable, but getting there and speaking out and sharing, you never know who you're going to help, right?
Yeah, you never know who's in that room. You never know what connections you're gonna have. Like we went out a couple of weeks ago. Didn't know what to expect. Ended up meeting two wonderful souls. I've invited them into my kind of personal networks around freedom, which is another subject. And they could be lifelong friends now. And I didn't. I was a bit nervous coming out that evening.
But you stepped into the uncomfortable.
I
you
definitely
did it,
stepped into the
and then
uncomfortable.
you didn't look back, and you had an amazing time and met some great people.
Yes.
Which is it is kind of, it really explains networking, right? A lot of people feel ick or feel like a wall, and yet if you're able to find a networking event or company that can get rid of that wall and make you feel at ease, then you never know with each person that you speak to what opportunities they're going to open up to you. So would you say, you sound like you have a very tech type brain from your journey and from what you do. Would you say there's an element of creativity? And do you think it's important to be creative in your thinking as an entrepreneur, as a business person, as somebody that buys businesses and runs them? What are your thoughts there?
Definitely very creative brain. I was a DJ for many years, and then started making my own music. Then I was creating websites. So I love the creative process. My most joy at the moment is actually getting an A1 sheet of paper and mapping out my strategies. I love that creative process. I love thinking about problems I may be facing at the moment and how I can solve it. So I absolutely love that whole creative process on how to tackle issues I've currently got, and how I'm going to get from where I am today to where I ultimately need to be. Yeah, I love that whole process.
It's all about balance, isn't it, really?
It is all about balance. Of course, you can sway from one side to the other. But yeah, I've always been a yin and yang kind of believer.
Yeah. What would you say your best qualities are?
Oh, wow.
Putting you on the spot there, Lee. Or imagine you're not you and you're your best friend or your wife. What would they say are your best qualities?
I would say I definitely care about what I do. I never want to harm people. That's definitely one recurring theme. I always see the best in people. I've been screwed over a couple of times in the last sort of 5 years. So ethics are definitely at the heart of everything I do.
Good.
I believe every business that I buy, I try and improve. So my main aim is always to employ people, create opportunities. One of my most precious business is run by an amazing woman that was my PA.
Wow.
And I could see she was just an incredible person. And now she runs that business. I would wish she could run more of my companies. She's a phenomenal person. And I want to create opportunities for people, because that's not something I'm good at. I'm not good at running businesses. I'm good at the deal making and the strategy. So finding win-win scenarios where I'm helping people, that's kind of where my heart is at.
Yeah. And tell us a bit more about what you do. How many companies have you got at the moment? It sounds like you're a mentor as well. So tell us a bit more about what you're doing at the moment.
So I mentor some people on how to acquire businesses, how to source off-market businesses, My day job is finding companies that are off market to buy. So I bought 26 companies over the last 8, 9 years.
Wow,
Um,
that's a lot.
not happy with that number, to be honest. It's a three per year kind of average, but the last couple of years has been a little bit harder because now I'm looking for bigger, more profitable businesses, and it's harder to raise the money due to interest rates. But I'm working with private investors now, because if their money sits in the bank, they're getting anything from sort of 1 to 5%, whereas I'm offering 9, 10% interest, plus some of them are taking equity stakes as well. So that's a new thing I've been working on for 18 months, is getting more investors on board so they can own, physical assets in businesses. And there's a lot of property investors that want to move into what I'm doing. There's been a massive flood into mergers and acquisitions, and I just enjoy it. Although I'm comfortable walking into rooms full of people networking, I love sitting one-on-one with business owners. I absolutely love it. I do it day in, day out, finding out what they're looking for, what they're looking to do, and trying to find a win-win scenario so I can get them that low tax retirement money, and I can go and control their business and create wealth for everybody.
Sounds like you make a big difference in a lot of people's lives, and that you really care about what you do, which is fantastic. And I think having the honesty there, that you really care, that you're not harming people in business, is really important, because there are, we all know we come across certain people in life that sometimes ruin your trust in humanity. So it's always a joy to meet people that have got a good heart. I personally have a good sense of somebody these days, in my older self, of an intuitive sense of people that have got a good heart. And I think you're one of them.
Oh, thank you.
Can you tell me a little bit about the spiritual side of Lee?
So I was going through a bit of a midlife crisis in 2008. I lost access to my daughter, and for anyone who's got children, they will probably understand that when you lose access to something that's so precious to you, has a really big impact on you. So I was going through some really hard times, 2008 to 2012, and I knew something had to change in my life. I was for the first time ever, I was feeling quite depressed. So I thought, right, I need to find a way out. And I don't know how, I don't know why, but I came across an advert about walking on fire, and what a difference it made to their life. And it was a guy called Tony Robbins. Never heard of him. So in 2012, I went to the Excel Exhibition Centre in London, and there was a room full of 10,000 crazy people jumping up and down to house music, which I love. And actually, that was a absolute pivotal moment in my life, because I was definitely on a downer. And after those 4 days, I walked out completely invincible. And then 6 months later, I went on a mergers acquisitions course, and from the Tony Robbins momentum and energy that I had, and a renewed focus on life, I found exactly what I was looking for, which was a route to get from being poor stroke middle class to getting the wealth that I always knew that I was destined for. I always had a feeling it was something I was destined to do. I never had a clue how to get from A to B. So learning mergers acquisitions, it was that light bulb moment. Here's the process. I never knew what strategies were around to get me from where I currently was to where I knew I should be. And mergers and acquisitions gave me that moment. So throughout that whole journey, it's very stressful. And through reading immense amounts of books, I found meditation. So while I was buying, in 2015, I thought I bought 5, 6 companies. It was highly stressful. These were all distressed businesses. So buying 6 distressed companies and running my IT business, I would be driving around the M25 up the M40, and I'd stop off and do a 20-minute meditation. And I could have been anywhere in the world. I could have been in the middle of a jungle, a desert, for those 20 minutes, I found the ultimate peace. And I'd come out with 20-minute meditation and go on and do my meetings. And without finding that kind of spirituality, I would have just been someone hungry for making money and screwing people over, I think. And I think that's where I found true balance, was making money, hustling day in, day out, long hours, and that immense tranquility you can find with meditation.
Yeah. Would you say that was your technique if you ever got overwhelmed? Because running that many businesses and doing so much, you must have felt a little bit of overwhelm now and then.
Oh,
So was that your go-to? Just a bit.
100%. Yeah, the gym's one thing, but yeah, for overwhelm and for all those voices inside your head, meditation, I can't imagine how people survive. Having learned meditation, I don't know how people go day in, day out through all the craziness of life without meditation, because it's a mind cleanse.
Do you ever find you have downloads after you've been meditating, or a sense of connecting to something much bigger than the self, or just these amazing ideas coming through? What's happened to you over your journey of meditation?
Yeah, definitely. It's hard to explain to people that don't meditate, but when you've got 1,000 things going on in your mind, there was one particular example I can remember. I was meditating off the Pearly Way in Croydon. If anyone knows it, it's a crazy road. Road rage. I was in the Sainsbury's car park and I was meditating, and I just got this most beautiful stillness. And then, it sounds stupid, but I had suddenly remembered there was a parking ticket that I needed to pay, and there was 1 day left. This is the beauty of meditation. It takes you to your, I would say your higher self, the intuitive mind. So out of all the madness in your life, if there's one thing you've forgotten to do that needs to be done the next day, meditation can really help you do that. It sees through all of the fog and tells you what's the most pressing thing you need to do. And that one example is probably the best example I can give. Is when you've got 1,000 things going on, it suddenly reminds you, it clears all of your crap talk and madness you've got going on, and says there's this one thing that you need to do, otherwise there's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
It's just one small example of how good meditation is. It really focuses you on the one thing that is urgent to deal with right now.
Yeah, it's such a good tool to have, because as entrepreneurs, it's such a common thing for people to get overwhelmed when you're starting multiple businesses, and there can be moments where it's brilliant and you're excited and you've got all these ideas coming, and then when you're a sort of person that's almost a little bit ADHD, and there's so many ideas coming in and you're trying to do so much, and it's all great for a time, and then sometimes you can get to this moment where you suddenly feel like you're drowning in it, and what you've taken on, it's like so much to handle. But if you've got something to turn to, like meditation, walking out in nature, whatever it is for you, it's just, it's so important, isn't it, to have these tools to turn to. So you told me earlier you're going on a retreat. Is that something that you do often and that you recommend, to step out of life and go and retreat?
It's something I don't do enough of, but I want to do a lot more going forward. I love traveling. Some of my best creative moments is when I'm traveling. I got into mergers and acquisitions because I was sitting on the beach in Brazil. I just bought a house in Brazil 2008 through my midlife crisis. But it was amazing. I was sitting on this stunning beach, really unspoiled part of Brazil, really one of the poorest states in Brazil, but it was absolutely stunning. And again, I was sitting there doing creative writing, coming up with ideas. I wasn't wealthy by any means at all back then. But those moments are the most precious to me. Is traveling, being on a plane where you haven't got phone, you haven't got distractions, you haven't got noise. Even though you can get Wi-Fi now, I would never do that on a plane, because for me that is precious time to get my favorite book, to have that kind of mental dump of ideas and be really creative. So going forward, I want to do a lot more retreats. I used to travel every month. It's a bit difficult now with a 12-year-old boy that needs me. But if I can travel every 2 months, 3 months, and do a retreat, that's my ideal.
Wonderful. Can I ask you, Lee, what's your biggest success and your biggest failure?
Biggest success, I think it was a success at the time. So in 20, well, actually, the failure brought the biggest success. So in 2016, I owned 2 manufacturing companies. Now, I had 0 experience in manufacturing. I was working with a Swedish business partner at the time who was much better at operations than me. And we bought a quite highly regarded pottery company. And I was interviewed by BBC News because it was quite a high-profile company, had a royal stamp. And my business partner was convinced that he could use our client base to grow this company and re-establish it. It was going under. It was in administration. So I did the deal. I did the deal with the administrators to buy this company. We saved, I think, 20 to 30 jobs. It was a massive factory, really big pottery company. However, with those kind of companies, there's lots of complexities. Like something so simple as switching on the power was delayed by a month. So we were on a back foot from day one. So that company ended up closing after 12 months. So that was a massive, massive blow, not only to my ego, to my, I guess my ethical side, because I always wanted to create more jobs than get rid of. To have a company go into administration in those circumstances really was a mental blow for me. So I probably took 12 to 18 months out and decided enough was enough. I wasn't going to get involved in distressed, crazy companies anymore, and decided to go for bigger, more profitable companies. So in 2018, I went out, started scouring the market, and in 2019, ended up buying a £12 million roofing company that specialized in football stadiums. So it was very profitable, very, very good business. And so that was, and in the circles I was in back then, probably hundreds of mergers and acquisitions people in the lower, it's called the lower market, which is basically anything from 1 to 20 million. That was probably the biggest deal that was done in those circles at the time. So that was a huge success.
The lower market, 1 to 20 million. That's mind-blowing.
Yeah, private equity don't touch those sizes historically. However, they are starting to move into those areas.
So how did that failure contribute to your success?
I think it was so humbling, me being, as a director shareholder, me being so humbled by the experience of having a company fail under my directorship, made me think, what do I need to do differently going forward? So again, it was that creative time, the creative process. Sat down, what do I need to do differently? Right, let's go for bigger companies. Let's go for companies that are profitable, not crazy distressed, is one. And again, we did a fair deal with the owner of that business. And yeah, I could sleep easy at night. It was a company that was actually making money, not a disaster crazy situation, which I think is a bit of personality as well.
Yeah.
Because I was probably a bit of not a wreck. I guess I was a bit reckless at the time. And through the meditation process, through the failure, I actually grew a lot. I read a lot more books. I've got a huge library at home now. And I think Jim Rohn says, judge a wealthy person by the amount of books that they have in their house.
Yeah.
And
And maybe from the failures that they've had.
No, exactly.
Failures are lessons, and that's the key, right? Because if you give up after a failure, then that's it. But if you look at it like going to university, your failure is your university, is your lessons, then then you learn from it and then you grow. And I've seen so many people who have just they've got to this place where they're super successful, but had they not gone through that failure and continued, taken it as a lesson and then moved forward, if they'd have given up at that point after the failure, then they would never have got to where they are today.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Yeah, and for every problem, there's a book to solve it. That's the way I look at it. Someone's already been there, done it, solved it. So you just need to find the right book to solve the current challenge that you're facing.
Yeah, or mental.
Or mental.
Do you find that you're getting happier as you're getting older? Coming from a place where you said you were super happy as a child when you had nothing to where you are now?
Yeah, like everything, it goes in cycles in life. So I just had another huge failure in 2022, which again was a challenge. However, I've been refocusing, rebalancing, meditating on it again. I'm back meditating properly, which I missed out on. And I would say, yeah, I'm definitely in a really, really good place. Yeah, I would say my knowledge is always increasing, and my network is a lot better now than it was a year ago. So again, each failure has led me to a much better network, much better group of people asking much better questions of myself and the people around me. So yeah, I think the more yeah, I'd say bring it on now, bring on the failures, because every time it happens, I get pissed off, and then increase the people, the scope of the people around me.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. You're a man that does yoga.
I have to. You know, I'm 50 now, so flexibility is the key. I thought going to the gym and getting strong, running, weight training was what it was all about, but actually flexibility is the key.
Yeah.
There's not many men in my yoga classes, but
Well,
but I think it's essential.
good on you, because that's true. There are far more women than men, but it's wonderful to see guys that are into yoga. There's so it's not just an exercise. It's not just something that can make you flexible. There's so much more. It's a huge world with yoga that essentially leads to meditation, but often the people get confused. They go to a gym class and it's just 45 minutes in and then they're out. But yeah, congrats anyway. It's good to hear that you do that. I think you're amazing. Do you have a bucket list?
Oh, I've got a huge bucket list.
Talk us through it.
Wow. One of my dreams is to have my own retreats one day, spiritual retreats. That's something a long way down the line. But I've got a huge list of destinations I want to go to. Asia is a destination I want to travel a lot more to. We've got 2 family trips planned for this year.
Where would you have your retreat, and why is it a long way down the road?
Ooh. I guess self-belief. It took me a long time to be comfortable calling myself a mergers and acquisitions specialist. Probably I still feel a little bit uncomfortable saying that, even though I've got to where I've got to. I guess I'm always a little bit self-doubting. Doesn't matter what happens in life, I'm always, because I'm very critical of myself. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and until I've got 8 figures, I feel like I'm not a success.
But I think that makes you more likable, more human in a way, that you've got those sensitive parts of you that come across, and people maybe connect to you more so than they would do that somebody that is so Andrew Tate-ish, let's say. And it has the opposite effect. So I think it's human, and it's nice, and it's good. And it's good to always have places and elements where you want to grow.
Yeah, very complimentary. I'm actually a fan of people like Andrew Tate. Well, if I look at my role models, you've got people like Tony Robbins, Andrew Tate, Rob Moore. These are all
Opinionated people.
very opinionated, strong, masculine figures.
Yeah.
I do look up to that. However, I don't feel like I'm at their level, so I'm a lot quieter and timid with it. So yeah, it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting, the whole dynamics.
Do you want to get to their level? Is that on your bucket list?
It was going into lockdowns. Yeah, when the whole COVID era came, I think I had companies with just short of 50 million revenue. And 100%, my target was 150 million revenue. For whatever reason, it was a completely made up number that I thought meant something. So I don't know. I have a bit of tug of war inside of myself. It's, do I want to get to that level? Yes. Do I want to sacrifice time with my son and my spiritual side? No. So I think there's a bit of a balance in between. So I think getting to a healthy 8-figure where I'm actually making a meaningful impact on the world, I think is a good middle ground that I'm comfortable with. So I admire those people. I don't necessarily, well, I definitely don't want to sell my soul, is the answer. So if I can get there doing what I believe in, then 100% I'll do it.
Which brings me to the question, what's more important to you, money or fulfillment?
Fulfillment.
That was very fast.
Yeah, 100% fulfillment.
Yeah, wonderful. So, Lee, bringing this into a close now, thank you so much. It's been incredible talking to you, really insightful. The listeners here are going to be generally people that are entrepreneurs building a business themselves, perhaps going through struggles. What's your top tips for the listeners trying to build their dream life and getting to where they want to be? What would your top tips be?
I'd say don't settle for second best. And the one thing that always drove me was I knew I needed, for me it's a need, and especially now, the time we're in, like I say again, interest rates, inflation, you hear about it all the time. However, the numbers they publish are not real. 10 to 15% inflation is the real inflation, at least. So it's not just a desire to be wealthy. I think it's a necessity to be wealthy these days, because otherwise
the gap is getting bigger.
The gap is getting massively bigger, and you're not going to have freedom. You're not going to have freedom of choice, freedom of location. That's my driver. I want freedom of location and time, and to get that, you need more money, and money's not a bad thing. Money's a good thing. You can do really good things with it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Lee.
Pleasure.
It's been wonderful having you here. Huge thanks. Namaste.
Namaste.
All right. Yeah. I do go with the flow a bit. I just forgot that. I hope I haven't forgotten to ask you anything there that I said I would. How do you feel like that went? Were you happy with it? You okay?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Was it okay?
It was awesome. Amazing.
A lot of topics. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of shorts there.
Got
That
the
All right.
important stuff out of the way at the beginning, and then moved into the more sort of
Yeah.
personal,
nice and
stuff
deep.
towards the end. So yeah, it was good. I know why you kept, because I was giving her time as we went along, and I was also conscious that you got kind of a hard stop and you need to go. But I know why you let it go, because it was a good conversation.
Yeah.
So she's just like.
Well, I
letting
said
it
we'd
roll
go to
and
12:30, and it was exactly
Yeah.
12:30 when I
Just
stopped.
about,
So
yeah.
so
All right. I
yeah,
enjoyed it.
if you need to go because it's 12:30, then please don't let me
Yeah, really enjoyed
keep
it.
you. Good. Well, thank you, Lee. I'll be in touch.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I'll send you some shorts and things as well once we've started editing.
Yeah, just be careful.
Tracy,
Make
thanks
sure
very
you
much.
fall. Yeah, man, that was a good chat.
Yeah, super good.
Tracy's been waiting.
Okay, cool. I'll come now.
Yeah, don't forget that.
Where did you put it?
Taking some pictures.
Yeah, did you take a picture of can we
Yeah,
just
of
have
course. Yeah,
you
yeah,
did?
yeah.
You've
It's
done.
on mine already.
Okay, you just didn't do a posing one.
Yeah, I didn't do a posing.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Let me.
Go on then.
Fine,
Can I
yeah,
do a
pictures.
posing one?
Yeah, my
Ready?
socials. I'll get used to
Sit
it.
down
more.
again.
3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Good.
Nice one.
Great stuff.
Can you send those?
Yes, of course I will. Absolutely.
And there'll be like a whole, you'll get some follow-up emails, and then as it gets closer to the stuff going live, we'll share all the shorts and all the videos and everything with you.
I really
you can-
appreciate that.
If you've got social media people or whatever who can do that, then they can push it out. So yeah, we'll get you everything.
Love it. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Yeah, I'll check.
then you're nice and relaxed.
Okay.
And we go with the flow. It's just like a nice conversation. Have you done a podcast before?
No.
No.
Cool.
You done video before?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And I've
You
spoken.
look
in
great.
it,
Look at these
so-
nails.
No,
Wow.
they're builder gel.
Oh,
So
I've
they're
got
o-
builder's nails.
But they're my own nails, but
Yeah.
they're just that gel on the top.
Yeah.
It just means they actually look quite nice.
God, you always put me to shame, Tracy. You always come looking glamorous to everything. And there's me in jeans and jumper and crappy nails.
It's fine. Also, I wouldn't worry about the cards because I suspect that they're going to fall down.
Yeah, should I put them on?
Um,
I won't put them on
so
my.
if you want them on the table, you've got the glasses of water on the table. Jess has her laptop. I think it's fine if you have some notes or whatever in front of you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, whatever. It's
I think it's okay. So yeah, if you just get sort of settled. Did you want a glass of water or something?
Yeah, a glass of water would be great.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay,
you.
I'll get that for you in just a second.
cool. Did you just
Yeah,
call me,
just,
Tracy? Sorry.
I
said-
called you before because the postcode took me to a private residence.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
no one else has had that issue.
No, well, I did it on my car, and then I did it on Google Maps, and it brought me here. But it was just a bit
Yeah.
weird.
Oh man, oh that's good to know for the future. Yeah, sorry about that. And then you got in okay. You got parked. Yeah.
no, literally outside.
Good. So yeah. So how you feeling about doing this? Okay.
No,
Good stuff.
absolutely fine.
Mm.
And it's your third one. Is this the
No.
final one?
Yeah, third one today. Yeah.
Okay.
But we've done some more in the studio before. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice studio. He's got a box full of treats in there, in the black box there. Damn, I didn't do an Instagram live for Lee, and I think he likes posting things. on
Actually,
social
my
media.
Instagram live on a
Mine.
Tuesday is normally at 12:30.
Do you want to do do an Instagram live
Yeah.
and then tag me in it afterwards?
Okay.
Yeah, and it has to run for longer than a minute, doesn't it, for it
Yeah,
to
yeah.
post? So
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead and go do
Shall I
that
do it
now,
now?
if you want. Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Saved me a job because I did it with Dale. I forgot to do it with Lee. So I was so kind of intensively into the conversation with Lee that I forgot. It works quite well from over there, I found. I mean, you do it wherever you feel is best, but you want to, like, obviously have the studio in the background. Yeah, where's the music? How did he put the music on? Do you remember?
No idea.
No, never mind. All right.
Maybe.
No, but he had some music on earlier. Doesn't matter. And if Callum comes in, then he's more than happy to be on social media. So, yeah. The background noise, you don't hear that, do you?
You'll hardly hear
Because
it.
there's a few people like going through the doors.
You'll
and
hardly hear them. Most of that will come
Yeah.
out in the post-processing anyway.
Okay. I like the setup though. I think it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you happier with it than the first one?
I think it's way better than the first one. The only thing that's slightly annoying, but
Yeah.
it's not such a big deal, is if we're seeing the top edge of your laptop.
I can take the
I
laptop
don't mind
away.
it in front of you. In front of you is fine. Do you see this right here? When
No.
I'm looking at the guest, it's
Yeah.
just getting the top edge of the laptop in the frame. Just
Oh,
there.
okay. Oh, I can bring it closer.
But
Oh, I see what you
yeah,
mean.
you see, it's still.
How
even
about
still
that?
So it doesn't matter. I think.
But
just
that's
leave
better,
it there.
isn't it?
I think just leave it there.
That is
'cause
better though,
otherwise-
isn't it?
I mean, yeah, it's a little better, but then it looks kind of funny on the other one.
Oh yeah.
Just put it where it is. I think it's all right. It's whatever. I can probably just maybe zoom in afterwards to
There?
get some of it out, but it's yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not ideal to have it there. So,
Yeah. You need to
in
switch,
general, but yeah, that's all right.
switch the angle, Tracy.
I'm actually recording that.
Yeah.
I'm just going to shove something in the door, so it won't shut on me.
Oh, before you go, let's have you in the podcast Live.
In the live.
Yeah.
What's your name?
David.
Our producer. Hi. Is it recording?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Men and Money. That is Jess that you can see in the background. She's part of Spark Business Networking, and we're going to be doing our first podcast. And we've got all of the manager here. There's Dave. And
Dave is our
take you
producer
round,
and editor.
and we're in this suite in Bromley at Titan, which is really great. So this is my first podcast.
Can I just show you something?
Jess is going to show us something. What are you going to show?
I know, I didn't realise, but I was wondering when I came into the studio today, it's the second time I've been in the studio, what this black box is over here. So, can you guess what's in the black box?
What is in the box?
What do you think? Have a guess. What do you reckon's in the black box, Tracy?
Wires,
Wires?
speakers, microphones.
It's a box of treats.
Excellent.
Chocolates and Haribos and Fantas and apple
So sustenance for all of the podcasters. Excellent.
Yeah, black box full of treats. I love it. There you go. It's a nice studio, don't you think?
Brilliant studio. Yeah,
Like
and just
it.
down the road as well from us. So
Yeah. So
I
I'm
think
just
we'll be
about to
using this.
interview Tracy. I'm going to probe and ask her all sorts of interesting questions about money mindset, about mentors, about everything that we do, about networking as well, because obviously you're a Spark member, and I want to talk to you about networking and business. So, are you nervous?
No, not particularly.
Good.
Anyway,
Looking forward
wish
to
me
it.
luck, and I will give you your update later.
Good luck.
Bye, everybody.
Sorry, I'm very naughty. I tired him. It should be called the Naughty Spark, not the Networking Spark. Thank you, Tracy. So then if you just tag me in there when you post it.
You guys do that. I'll go grab Tracy a water really
Yeah,
quickly,
great.
and I'll be ready.
So you want to post it on the pin, don't you? There we go. There we go. So that's it. It's on your post, isn't it?
No, that was one I did before.
Okay. Oh, just post it. Oh. there's even like there's whiskey, prosecco, and all sorts of things over there. But in here, you've got like you've got sweets, Haribos, chocolate toffees, and yeah, cans
So
of Fanta
sustenance for the speakers.
in
So
a black box.
I think I'll be digging into that later. So hello everybody and good luck. Wish me good luck for my first podcast today. See you soon.
You don't look nervous at all. We need to make sure that that's been filmed for over a minute, by the way. That might be what happened last time. It's been well over a minute, David says, so we're all good.
Right, everyone, I will update you later. Bye.
Share. What, Haribos? We're going to have some more food after.
Yeah, we can have something afterwards. Just watch that door behind you.
Very aware of that. What do you think's legs? Nice guy, isn't he? So
What
nice.
does he actually do? Is he
He's
the one
in
that
mergers
buys
and
businesses?
acquisitions.
Yeah. And his because I was talking to him about his wife. She's struggling a bit.
She's Brazilian.
Oh. Where should I put them so we can
Right.
What's she struggling with?
menopause?
Oh, bless. Oh.
This is recording.
Okay, that's fine. We're just eating Haribos. It's fine. It's good stuff. We'll probably chew in a bit loud, but
I'll
we'll
turn my
start in
phone
a
off.
minute. Yeah, or silence it, one or the other.
Right. Okay. It's a conversation, isn't it? So
Mm. Yeah.
Can you chat for a second? So I
Oh,
can
okay.
check the sound?
Yeah, let's just chat about nothing for a bit.
So what time did you get here today?
I got here slightly after Dale. Dale Shepherd
Yes.
arrived 35, 40 minutes early. And David and I got here at just about 10 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Where does he come from then? He's not round here, is he?
No,
On the train.
he's about an hour and a half away, I think. Yeah, so he left super early to make sure he got here. Shall I move those Haribos or keep them there?
Keep them.
Okay.
I'm personally, the way I produce my stuff is I'm quite relaxed. Like if you want to have drinks and cards and
Oh, yeah.
like whatever, I don't mind because it's a conversation and I like it to be a little casual. We're not
Yep.
doing like broadcast BBC
No,
news.
no, no.
Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it can be a bit more comfortable. I think that adds a little bit more authenticity to it.
Relaxed is key.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I think it's a little better that way.
And then
you can-
between questions, will we
Yeah.
break, or is the
No,
questions
we'll
will
just keep
flow?
flowing. We'll
Okay.
just keep flowing.
She's
We'll
just
go
gonna
for like
bombard you.
35, 40 minutes. Yeah?
Okay.
All right. Okay. Happy for us to go?
Yeah, just making sure where she's going to sit.
Yeah.
And I'll just check the focus.
Have you ever thought about doing your own podcast?
I have actually.
Great.
I think once I've written my book,
Mhm.
then I might do a podcast.
You know what we're
So-
launching in October? Podcasting course.
Oh,
David's
okay.
going to be, because David's
that's a
bit
good
of an
idea.
expert.
Yes,
Yeah.
because I wouldn't know where to start.
Yeah, I've obviously done.
Yeah.
I did a really expensive course.
Does it look better with the jacket off?
No,
No.
it's fine. No, you
Okay.
look great.
Okay.
You decide what you feel most comfortable in.
No, I'm
But you
fine
can
with it.
see yourself in there, in that screen. You see the big TV?
Okay. Shall I
So
take it
we're-
off and see?
Yeah, your choice.
The only tip I would give is once you start, try not to move forwards and backwards too much
Yeah.
Okay.
because the focus is quite.
I think it's better with just the green.
Okay.
okay.
Cool.
Here you go.
And it's
I
quite
think we're
warm in
more
here.
matching then, in a way, because you with the jacket on and me without. It's like you've
Yeah.
just arrived.
Okay.
So yeah, just the forwards and backwards is the only thing, not too much, and you don't need to lean into the microphone either.
Oh, I've been
You-
doing that. I've been going so.
Yeah, you,
Every time I was
you don't
asking
have
Lee a
to.
question, I was like,
I mean, you can,
No.
but you don't have to. Again, it's the same moving forwards and backwards.
Mm.
It seems to be in focus as far as I can tell. But
Okay.
the microphone's playing that, so you
Yeah.
need to.
Good to know. Okay.
Right.
Ready to go? Should I clap?
Yep, whenever you're ready.
Hey Tracy, thank you so much for being on our podcast, The Networking Spark. Really excited to have you as being a member of Spark yourself, Platinum Spark member. You obviously take networking seriously. Tell us a little bit about you and what you do and who you serve.
So, yeah, I'm really excited to be part of Spark because networking is something that I really love. And I actually, my role, I suppose, is something that I love, and that is talking to people and helping people to understand how their hormones can influence their financial behaviour. And that is particularly in the stage of perimenopause and beyond, but that can impact all areas of your life, particularly as a female. I think there's 3 times in your life when hormones are mostly affected, and that can be from puberty. I call them the 3 Ps. So puberty, pregnancy, and some of us don't go down that route, but then perimenopause. So I really guide women, particularly professional women and entrepreneurs, to really understand how those hormones can impact their financial behaviour. And I sort of, if I look at my background, do you want me to start and talk to you about how I got to where I am today?
Why not? Tell us your journey, Tracy.
So I've been an entrepreneur, I think probably now, gosh, showing my age, but about 30 years. And I started off, I've been running businesses from fitness, media, events. And the past decade has been in financial services. So my husband and I run an accountancy practice. And he's the chartered accountant, but I'm certified protection advisor. So we've been running that together. And a few years ago, we had 2 children, both at private schools, very successful business. You know, life was really good. And then COVID hit. And there was a lot of financial overwhelm. I think we spoke to our accountancy clients. We've got about 300 of them. We probably spoke to more of them within that sort of 6-month period than we've ever done before, helping them with furlough, etc. And obviously with schooling, homeschooling. I don't know if have you got children that you were trying to homeschool at that time? It's a really challenging time. And on top of that, I just felt I couldn't recognise myself because I was used to being a mum and juggling things, really social, able to run the business and do everything.
So would you say it was a really stressful time for you during COVID?
I think COVID was the start for me, the start of this financial overwhelm and start of getting stressed and not feeling in control. And that uncertainty about what would happen in the future. And then I started to feel my periods weren't as regular as they were before. I was getting stressed more. I was crying all the time. And I just felt I couldn't recognise myself. And at the time, my son was doing his GCSEs as well.
Yeah.
We had embarked on this massive extension on our house. So we were mortgaged to the hilt. And that meant that financially, you know, we were always stressed about it, and it really was a time of overwhelm.
Yeah.
And I just felt that I wasn't myself. I felt very stressed, and I had this irrational fear. For example, I didn't like driving at night. I would feel dizzy. I actually collapsed. And my husband called the ambulance, and they transferred me to A&E. And because it was time of COVID, I was there all alone, having anxiety, and feeling this dizziness. And I was there for 12 hours on my own, and they couldn't work out what was wrong with me. I was really in turmoil. I couldn't put my finger on what was wrong. And my mood swings were all over the place. One minute I was fine, and the next minute I physically could not get out of bed. I wasn't even able to take my daughter to school, let alone work. So it was a time where I think I questioned my ability. I felt like a burden to my family. I could feel my life slipping away from me. and I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression, and sent to the Priory, actually, the one down the road at Hayes Grove. And I'd never felt that way before. And I don't know if I've told you this, Jess, but 18 years ago when I was pregnant with my son, I had a brain tumour. And I survived the brain tumour and all of that, and having a newborn baby and brain tumour, the best and worst thing in your life. And I'd survived that, but this period was worse. I just couldn't understand why I was feeling this way. The GP couldn't understand it. The psychiatrist at the Priory couldn't understand it.
Did it scare you?
It really scared me, yeah. And I just felt I was a burden and no one could work out what was wrong. And I just couldn't put my finger on how to get better. And there was one point where I just thought, I have two choices. I can sink or swim. And I chose swim because I wanted to see my children grow up. I wanted to have an opportunity to build my life back again. So I decided to focus on my personal development. I read books, listened to podcasts, and I went to various therapies. And the one book that really changed my life was Davina McCall's Menopausing. Have you read it?
I haven't personally, no, but
Yeah.
I know it's affected many, and she, in my eyes, started the movement and the educating of menopause, and started a real movement within,
Yes.
a few years ago. And since then, there's been a lot more awareness.
Yes. I mean, this book, so I read the book and I realised that I had over 80% of the symptoms of the menopause. So I was 50 at the time. My periods were irregular. I had dizziness. I had anxiety. I had weight gain, mood swings, brain fog, memory loss. And all of these things, I thought, I've been suffering for the last 11 months, haven't worked for 8. And I went to the GP and I said, could this be the menopause? And she tried various antidepressants. None of them were working, hadn't worked to send me to the Priory. And so she said, well, we can try HRT. And within 2 weeks, I was functioning again.
That must have been a big relief.
Yes, I mean, just unbelievable. I mean, I literally could not physically get out of bed, and all of a sudden, I was able to take my daughter to school. I was able to cook meals for my family. And nobody should have to go through that. Nobody should sit in A&E for 12 hours. No husband or partner should have to section their wife for menopausal imbalances. You know,
Is that what
and-
happened?
Yeah,
You were sectioned?
I was sectioned.
Goodness,
Yeah.
gosh, wow.
So that shouldn't happen. And yes, Davina McCall has done amazing things, but it's still happening. I remember talking to my nan, and she said with menopause that they just used to send you to the loony bin.
Yeah,
And that's what they did to me.
yeah.
And I don't want that to happen to anybody else.
Would you mind going into that in a bit more detail, because you never know who you're going to be helping, who's listening. I know it's probably a painful experience to go back to, but what happened? When your husband decided he had to take that step, which is huge.
So, I mean, if I go back to not being able to get out of bed, bearing in mind that I've run various businesses, I've been a mum, and I've been able to do everything, because we're from the generation that women can have it all. And I physically couldn't get out of bed. My husband dragged me to the doctors, couldn't open my eyes, and I was just sleepy all the time. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep properly. I would sleep on the sofa because I just wasn't sleeping properly, which then had the knock-on effect. But I think the main problem for me was this anxiety, this sort of irrational anxiety that I'd never had before. As I said, I didn't like driving at night, or I really used to catastrophize situations. So, for example, my son went out with some friends at the end of term. My son's, he was 16 at the time. He went out with friends to Blue Water, and he wasn't back on time, and I thought, oh my God, something's happened, and I just catastrophized things, and it was this irrational fear that I just couldn't put my finger on. And it got to the stage where my husband was saying to me, what can I do? And I didn't know what to do. The doctors didn't know. And I remember having a conversation with a psychiatrist, and actually it was my mum that said to me, are you sure it's not the change? Because I was 50. No doctors asked me about my periods at all. And I spoke to the psychiatrist and I said, you know, could it be the menopause? First of all, he said I was too young at 50. And secondly, he said, well, if you want to go down that route, I'm a psychiatrist and I specialise in the brain. And you need to go back to your GP to get them to do those tests. So they don't look at people holistically.
Yeah, which is so
Just
really unhealthy, isn't it?
Yeah, and then he sent me to a heart specialist to try and work out why I was having such negative effects with
And that was the anxiety, wasn't it?
Well,
really?
it was my body telling me that I didn't need antidepressants. You know.
Because generally, that is still, unfortunately, these days, that is still the case. You go to a professional, a healthcare person, and still they're dishing out medication rather than looking at the person holistically and trying to find the solution. The first step is just medication. Just take a pill.
Yes, and that's quite scary, particularly having it. If you're going to a doctor with your symptoms and they're doing all the scary tests like brain scans, heart scans, and they're not finding anything, you do start to think the worst, and you think, what's wrong with me? Why can't the specialist help? And really, I think people need to be aware of these symptoms and also be aware that there is help out there. And that you can help yourself, because if you arm yourself with information about the symptoms of the menopause, you can then go to the GP, like I did, and say, look, these are the symptoms. I've read the book with Davina McCall. Can I try HRT? Now, HRT is one of the tools that you can use to get through the menopause. But people also need to realise that there's lots of coaches out there that specialise in it. And for me, I went on various therapies. So I did CBT, I did ACT, which is the acceptance commitment therapy. I went to counselling, and there was one therapy that really resonated with me. I tried all these therapies, and they didn't help very much. The government at the moment are saying that menopausal women should consider CBT rather than HRT, which is the medication. And it can be one of the tools, but it can't replace it. It's a bit like having a broken leg and saying, well, I'm going to talk to my leg to make it get better. You know, if we have a hormone deficiency, we need to replace the hormones or work out ways to actually improve the way that we think and our behaviour.
What's your advice to anyone going through menopause or andropause for men in techniques and healthy habits that they can bring in from day to day to help them?
I think it's the education, really. So you need to educate yourself on the symptoms of the menopause, journal it, and write down the changes that are happening in your body. And the thing is, with particularly perimenopause, the hormones are all over the place. So one day you might feel really anxious, and the next day you may not feel so anxious. You might feel, normal again, but because the hormones are up and down. But particularly you mentioned andropause, and if I can just explain the difference between the two. So menopause is a decline in hormones, and that is, for women, is estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. We also have testosterone in our bodies, which a lot of women find, quite they question it and think, oh, I didn't know that. And with men, not so severe, but there is a decline in hormones after you hit 40, and you go down, and that is to testosterone for men mainly, but also estrogen. So we both have estrogen in our bodies, and estrogen is the main hormone that impacts our brain. So I consider it to be the CEOs of our bodies, whether you're male or whether you're female. Now, normally for men, we used to call it the midlife crisis, where the men would go off and buy a sports car or go and marry somebody 20 years younger than themselves. I'm not endorsing that, of course, but it's less severe with men. But we have to be aware that actually those symptoms, and they're very similar, so they might be tired all the time. Men also might have a little bit of sadness, might not feel so happy all the time. They can develop breasts sometimes, which I know some men would definitely not want, but they need to be aware of these symptoms so you can be armed when you go to the GP. And the other thing I think is to find a therapy that really works for you. And then once you've found that therapy, find a therapist or coach that you have that sort of connection with. So for me, that was financial therapy. And it's not very common in the UK. It's very popular in America. And I found a financial therapist. She did an article actually in Cosmo, and she was talking about financial stresses and how financial stresses are impacted by emotions, and how money is really emotional, and how you can actually change your money mindset to get through the stresses in life. Now, that can be for any life stage, but particularly for me, I realised that my hormones were impacting my financial behaviour and the way that I felt about money. And because at that time we had that financial shock of COVID, and because our businesses were being impacted financially, I had 2 children at private school, and also I wasn't able to work for 8 months. Plus, on top of that, we had this massive extension, so we were mortgaged to the hilt. And if you think about the time of perimenopause particularly, there's a lot of overwhelm financially. So the average age is 51 for females to go through menopause, which is when your periods completely stop for at least 12 months or more. And then at that stage, if you imagine, 80% of menopausal women are working, so you're worried about your own retirement in terms of your finances. And then you've potentially got children, teenagers going to university, setting up their own homes, or even getting their own jobs. There's a lot more young people living at home now. So there's a lot of financial overwhelm there. And then you're sandwiched to the other end of the scale to elderly parents having to need their help financially, putting them into a home, which is so costly. I was talking to a lady the other day, and it was like £8,000 a week to send their parents. So there's a lot of financial overwhelm. And if you imagine that overwhelm, combine it with hormones, mood swings, and sleep deprivation, it's a really powerful concoction. And I'm the only expert that really links the two together, between the hormones and how it impacts your financial behaviour.
Cool. So, say for instance, there's somebody listening that feels like they have a money block, or they get money in and then it goes, and then they feel a lack. How would you advise them to create a money mindset?
That's a very good question, and a lot of people come to me saying, I'm never going to have enough money to retire, or I'm never going to have enough money, to go on holiday. And it's the language that we use, and it's reframing that language. So, for example, I'm never going to have enough money to retire. If we just tweak that language to saying, I'm going to put small things in place to have a good retirement. I often ask people what their first memories of money were. And if their parents said things like, money doesn't grow on trees, or we don't spend money like that, or we don't deserve money like that, that's all coming from a place of scarcity. And we want to really be able to look at things in a place of abundance. So I talk about the brain, and not to give too much of a biology lesson, but I talk about it having a survive brain and having a thrive brain. And this is particularly important when it comes to money, because everyone's relationship with money is unique, and it isn't about having lots of money. It's about actually having a good relationship with money, living within your means and being comfortable, planning for the future. So when we talk about thrive brain and survive brain, if you think about when you were born and a baby has a thrive brain, very curious, very positive, full of love. And then as we grow up, particularly in the Western world, we have messages of negativity. We're more stressed than ever before. And we have this fear and we have this anxiety about the future. And it's sort of inbuilt in us. So when we have a problem, I describe it sort of putting your hand on a hot stove. You put your hand on the hot stove, you quickly take it off. That sort of negativity can be positive, but if you hold your hand on the hot stove for any length of time, it's going to do some more damage to your hand. So if you have this survive brain and this negativity throughout your life, then that's going to impact you. So I talk to people and I get them to actually change the way that they think and to intercept those negative thoughts. Now, you're always going to get negative thoughts, but it's that holding your hand on the hot stove. You don't have to do it for too long. So you can intercept it by training your brain and rewiring your brain. And when I work with clients, I love acronyms. Do you like acronyms?
Mm-hmm.
So I have an acronym of my name, and my name's Tracy, but my husband says to me, thank goodness your name wasn't Josephine or Elizabeth, because it's only 7 letters. So the T stands for transform. You need to transform your money mindset. And I find it so rewarding working with clients when I see that transformation, not only alleviating their menopause symptoms, but in their money habits. And that has an impact on both their professional and also personal lives. So that's the T, transform your money mindset. And I can help you to do that. The R is reviewing and rewiring your brain by doing regular exercises so you can intercept that negativity and really understand your relationship with money. So if there was talk at home by money not growing on trees, money doesn't grow on trees, we would reframe that language and rewire your brain to actually work out and be grateful for what you currently have. Often people think, oh, I'll be happy when this happens. And I work with a lot of people that I work with, particularly successful people. They've said in their 20s, oh, I'll be happy when I've paid off the mortgage or when I've hit my first million. But then when they get there, they're sort of, oh, I didn't feel the way I thought I would. So then say, oh, well, I'll be happy when I hit my second million. So it's really important to rewire your brain and really realize what you've got and be grateful for that. So that's the R. The A is align your values and your goals. A lot of people don't have goals. I talk to ladies, and because as women we just keep going every day, we don't put anyone else first. We don't think about the future necessarily, about ourselves, and it's about asking yourself a question. And what does retirement look like for you? Or what does a prosperous menopause look like for you? And then we work out if those goals align with your values. And again, it's digging deep into those values themselves. And then the C is connecting with people. And like Davina, she's written this book, so people are talking about it, talking about there's two taboo subjects that I work on every day is money and menopause. We never talk about money. Nobody really, very rarely do you ask someone what they earn. We don't learn about it at school. And it's the same with the menopause. It's always sort of pushed under the carpet. Or you have people at work that just, particularly males, because they don't understand it, saying, well, it's just menopause, just get on with it. So we need to understand it and connect with people so that people share their stories, and I'm sharing my story, so that somebody listening can say, oh, that's me, or I can prepare for it so that that isn't me. And if I can help at least one person, then that would really be my legacy, really, just to help people to understand it and have awareness.
I was going to ask you about that. What legacy do you want to leave? But how long have you been going for? So people know you as Menno Money.
Yes.
So do you want to talk us through a little bit about the name, how long you've been going for, and what impression, what are your aims by doing what you're doing? How do you want to leave a legacy through doing the work that you do?
So because I had such a debilitating time with perimenopause, I decided that once I started to work on my personal development and get better, I decided to start writing a book because I wanted to help people so that no one had to go through what I did. And I think what I realised was that my financial background, and because of our financial shock at that particular time, there was the link between the two. And I started the business Menno Money because it really looks at how menopause can influence your hormones and how that can influence your mindset. So when I work with, I've worked with some incredible people. When I work with them, I look at the brain and getting them to understand the brain. I then look at the hormones, and if you have fluctuating hormones, how that can impact the brain. And then my thing is about mindset. And I think throughout life stages, if you have the right mindset and a positive mindset, then you can get through anything. So by changing our mindset, you can look at things as opportunities rather than failures or negative things. And then I put that together with working out their financial behaviour and how that financial behaviour is impacting their mindset and vice versa. And then, as we know, with perimenopause and menopause, the body changes, the body image changes. You might put on weight, you may have dry skin, and that can impact your self-esteem and your confidence. So I work with women to help them to have their career trajectory so that isn't impacted by the symptoms of the menopause. And really to try and get them to work on themselves. Because this is something, and yes, HRT is one of the toolboxes, but really your brain is the thing that you can rewire, you can work on, and you can really, really help yourself through all of life stages, but particularly in perimenopause and beyond.
And the key is to get rid of the stress, right? To develop techniques to release stress and potentially your health, what you do, what you're eating, what you're doing for exercise. So what's your guidance on the, do you guide just purely on the financial side, or do you look at the whole person and their lifestyle?
I mean, because of my background and having that psychiatrist say to me, you need to go to the GP if you want to consider things like your hormones, I like to look at it holistically. So I like to look at the brain and work out why these hormones are actually changing, and therefore it links the two together with the financial side and your money mindset, and then also your brain. And it's more about doing exercises that can retrain your brain to control that negative thought, so that we're all going to get negative thoughts and our brains will chatter all the time. But it's the ability to intercept those thoughts so that it doesn't impact you to the point that it did for me, and it's debilitating. So I work with particularly women, but also some men, because we've talked about the andropause and the symptoms of those, of how they can really thrive. So I retrain the brain to look at the thrive side, the positive side. So how can we have more positive thoughts? And I know that doesn't sound very easy, but if you train your brain to calm it in situations, very similar you do with yoga, then you can actually get through it. So you have those thoughts, and with a negative thought, you have two choices. Negative thought, you can either choose to, well, probably three choices, choose to let yourself go further into the hole, which is the survive brain, or you can use your thrive brain to accept it and just put it behind you, or you can look at it as an opportunity. And you can look at it, and I sort of say to people, these challenges that you're facing, if you can think of those as being a gift. So for me, you know, I was sent to the Priory, a psychiatric ward, which was terrible, but I've now turned it into an opportunity, and I'm now running a business, and I'm helping women to not get to that stage and helping women alleviate their menopause symptoms. But more importantly, and I think it's the missing piece, I'm teaching them how to actually have a positive mindset and how to consider their money mindset and how, you know, things from their past that they might be taking through to their future. So if their parents taught them, I mean, we learn a lot from parents about money, but if they taught them to be thinking of money as a place of scarcity, they might not believe that they deserve to be successful. So it's really analysing what you feel success is.
Yeah,
And that's different
absolutely.
for everybody.
In terms of starting a business and getting your message out there, how important do you think it is to be networking on a regular basis? And do you have experience of and preference of in-person and online networking? What are your experiences and thoughts about it?
So I've been running a business and entrepreneur for about 30 years. So 30 years ago, there wasn't the online. I think when I first started, didn't even have a mobile phone. So we're talking about, but I still think even 30 years on, that in-person still hasn't lost its luster really. And I think it's still crucial to have that in-person because that's connection. And it's really having that connection which is key. And what networking does, it's not just about the people that you meet, it's about the people that those people might know. And it's also talking about your business and talking to other people about it will really get you to understand your business and how you can help people and how you can target people. And it's getting that advice. But I think with the virtual thing, that's convenient. So you can do the networking with so I think you need to do both. But I think networking is really powerful, and I really enjoy it because I just see it as a social thing, and it's not really working for me, but it's getting the message out there, and I think it's absolutely key for new businesses and for businesses that are growing.
What do you mean by it's not working for you?
No, I don't consider it to be working.
Oh,
As in
going to work.
going to work,
Right,
yes.
got it.
Yes,
Okay, yeah.
I just,
But
because
it
it's
is.
fun, isn't it? But then,
If you go to the right company, then it's fun and
Yes.
it's work at the same time. But when it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like work, then that's fantastic, right?
yeah, and also that's running a business, isn't it? If you're doing something that
Doesn't
and-
feel like
and-
work.
and having a business like mine where I'm helping people and I'm also helping myself because every day I'm learning new techniques, learning new things about the brain, and I'm reading books. My husband at night, you know, I always read a book before, not a whole book, but read before I go to bed and listening to audio books, always learning,
Yeah.
always learning new things, meeting new people and experiencing things. And I think the networking clubs, I know particularly Spark for me, that's really taken my business to the next level. I mean, now I'm doing my first podcast.
And you're about to have a speaking opportunity at an event as well.
Yes.
It's got you speaking, which is super. And just, you never know when you meet someone, you know, what kind of opportunities and doors will open up, right? So it's a good adventure.
Yes,
I
and
believe
you never know who those people will know.
Exactly.
You know, you might talk to a nurse, for example, or and she might know a big business owner who wants me to go and do a speech. So you just never know. You just never know who you're going to meet.
Wonderful. Thanks, Tracy. We are nearly out of time, but I'd still like to ask you a question. What's more important to you, money or if I get that out again, what's more important to you, money or fulfillment?
I don't think that there's a one answer for that, because in the Western world particularly, you know, money is very important because we can't live without it. But interestingly, with money, it flows through different people. Some people have it flowing like a river. Some people will be like a desert with money. And the way that we feel about money and the way that we deal with it is really unique. So, but you really do need money to survive. But fulfillment is more about thriving. And I think to feel fulfilled, then that is more about your mindset. And that's why I think those two things link together. So to feel fulfilled, you do need some form of money, but that fulfillment is down to your brain and how you are actually thinking and how your brain is wired to whether it, and as I spoke about those two sides of the brain, whether you've got a mindset to survive or to thrive. And then that will be to do with your fulfillment.
Survive or thrive. I love it. Yeah, and I like the holistic view on that as well. So wrapping up now, Tracy, what would be your top tips to people listening into this podcast in terms of gaining the money mindset, dealing with hormones? If you just give some top short tips to those people, what would they be? Your top 5 tips, let's say.
Top 5 tips. Okay. Well, I think, first of all, you need to consider how and actually educate yourself onto how your brain is actually influencing your daily life.
Sure.
And then, so that's education. And also to ask for help. There are experts out there, so if you can ask for help, you don't have to do this on your own. And I think if you need help, feel free to actually ask for it.
Super important.
Education, and then that leads on to connection. Connect to various people so that you can get the support, because sharing is caring, and you will learn so much from people in terms of their experiences. The third one is to really have some goals. Ask yourself, what does retirement look like? Or what does a prosperous menopause look like? Or what does a successful business look like for you? And to ask those questions, if you keep asking why, you'll really dig deep into your successes. And if you then consider that as your mindset, and you have a mindset to thrive rather than just survive. And I think the last one is, which actually is part of my Tracy, which is the why, which is you. And I think if we can actually focus on self-care, you are the most important thing. You can make the changes in your life to actually improve your own mindset, improve your position financially, and also to improve your business. So you are the most important person.
Beautiful. Amazing tips. Thank you so much for coming on the Networking Spark podcast. I really feel like you're out there to spread your message to those that really need it. And the biggest standout for me there was to ask for help rather than keeping it inside and just dealing with it. A lot of people just try and deal with it because they don't understand it. They haven't got the education on it perhaps, or they're just scared of talking about it. So by you speaking about it publicly on the podcast, at events, in networking events, you never know who you're going to be helping. They might not say it, but you never know. So thank you so much, Tracy, from my heart to yours. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jess.
Haribo?
I didn't need the notes, did I?
No. Do you see? Didn't need them. Yeah. Sometimes it's just like having like a crux. Like what's it called when you're on a crutch? Yeah. It's like having a crutch. You think you need it, but then you
But
find.
if I didn't have it, I'd have the brain fog, you see.
Just knowing that you have it there
Yeah.
is usually enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a bit like life and health insurance.
Mm.
You have it. But I had a client rang me yesterday. I set up her life insurance 2 months ago. No, about a month ago. She rang me and said, financially we're struggling a bit at the moment, want to reduce our life insurance. And I said to her, you really do need to consider this really carefully. And she replied back, she said, you're just not listening to me. I want to reduce it. Anyway, she was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh my goodness.
A week later.
I'm so sorry. Right, we're just going to do a smiley photo. Ready?
What?
Thank you. Oh man, gosh.
You sound like you're getting a sore throat.
Me? I've had a sore throat for about 2 weeks, so it's just the remnants of it. That's all. No, I'm all healed and better. I don't usually get ill, so I was a little bit worried that I'd because I've lost my voice totally after our trip out. Funnily enough.
Okay.
Yeah. That was my body going, oi.
Right, thank you, David. Can you send me that photo, Jess?
Yeah, of course. I'll do it now. Yeah. So what have you got on this afternoon? Much?
Well, I'm for my sins. I'm a volunteer for my daughter's school, and we're organising school fete.
Funky.
I've done it for 2 years. My last year.
Very good of me.
So yeah, I'll sort that out.
Bless you. Okay, so you're a yes person then that says they will help.
Well, do you know what? I've been working on my mindset myself, and how to have that pride superiority. And it's the way that your brain can sabotage your thoughts. And one of the things that I've realised is that I'm a pleaser, and that I can't say no. So I need to work on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Bless you.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. Nice to see you again.
Right, that feels like a good number doing 3 in a row.
Yeah.
For me, that's pretty good. I could do another one,
Yeah.
but it would need to be someone really interesting.
But I think, but do you see now that you kind of know how it works, it's quicker.
Yeah, yeah.
So you don't have,
Totally.
there's not so much messing around. Even though we changed the whole setup and did it differently this time, it was still much quicker.
Which one did you think that was the most interesting? The bits that would be, have the most impact.
I mean, she's got a really interesting story,
Mm.
but for a very niche audience,
Yes.
obviously.
Yeah.
But I think it's also interesting probably for men who have wives who are going through menopause or
Yeah,
just
yeah.
starting perimenopausal or whatever.
Yeah.
So
I
that
should put that into my intro,
Yeah.
shouldn't I? Yeah.
so that could be interesting as well.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're male and you're married, don't think this isn't for you, because it could be interesting for you to.
Yeah, and it's also about money mindset, so I'll have to
Yeah.
do a bit, because she does talk a little bit distracted.
But that's fine. That's what you
Yeah,
want, right?
yeah, exactly, yeah.
And then, no, I think they all had their own
Yeah,
merits. They're all very different.
I really liked Lee.
Lee's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah,
known
he's quite
Lee
funny.
Lee is from the same group that Vinny's in,
Yeah.
isn't it? The 45 group.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was really funny when we went out, really funny guy. But quite humble as well, isn't he? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, which I like. I just think that's really
Yeah.
nice. So.
Yeah, and he said some, and I know he acknowledged it, but he dropped some slightly controversial names potentially.
Yeah, which is good. He said a few things that will be good to gain traction, I thought. And me putting Andrew Tate's name in there and things like that was that.
Yeah.
Hey.
The only name he didn't say was Jordan Peterson, which I was waiting for to come out, but he didn't say JP. I've turned all the cameras off. That's all done.
It was almost like he knew what to say, really.
Yeah.
So,
Here's my drive.
That's yours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good stuff.
Yeah, plug it in, actually.
Thank you for having us.
It's always a pleasure.
Thanks for giving my
Ah,
guests some prosecco.
Yes.
He could have done with another
No,
one.
yeah, I saw. I was like, no, should I come there? No, no.
Not at all, not at all. Yeah. Yeah, so I quite like to interview you, actually.
Okay, yeah.
voice messages. I don't know.
Okay.
Like all of a sudden, everybody started leaving me like WhatsApp messages all the time. I'm like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
Tuesday. That's Tuesday.
Yeah. The 11th of June.
224 dot
Probably, I think. Same. I think we'll do like maybe 11 to 12, 1 to 2, just in case I have to do that school run and my first guess is like really early again. Because I really want to, David, I learned today, I really want to be here before the guests
Yeah.
and do all of that setup. Otherwise, it's a bit awkward.
I mean, you can never,
already.
but you can never tell how
No.
early a guest is going to get here. I'm saying,
No, for sure.
should I just copy all these except for that?
Um,
Except for that one.
So just the go back.
Just the whole thing. Yeah.
But we're not finished yet.
Yeah.
That's just the first bit.
Yeah. That's fine.
Let's get the audio files. Can you put a SD card inside yours?
Yes. Although that, yeah, I can take that out. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine. It'll just take it a minute. Jess, Riverside.
Yeah,
Yes, Riverside's working.
great. Okay,
I did a recording yesterday and I recorded my end in 4K and it was fine.
brilliant. And are you
So-
free on the 11th of June?
Yeah, probably.
It's a Tuesday.
Probably, yeah.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Yeah.
11th of June.
Go on then.
Otherwise, it's going to go to wait, but actually, I'm going to take it home with me.
Oh, so I'll help you. I felt a bit more professional not drinking Prosecco that time, though, because when I look back at
Yeah.
some of the videos, I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's good. This was definitely better though. I think this setup is better.
Do you know any millionaires? I want to get some more millionaires in.
Depends on how you define
Oh,
millionaires.
sorry.
I mean, I know people who own, who have assets that are over $1 million, but
Yeah.
I don't.
Do you know any millionaires?
It depends on what you mean by
I
millionaire.
really
I-
want to interview more millionaires. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I know a few.
Do you know what? I forgot to ask every single guest who they would recommend was the best person I could interview.
Yeah, do that later.
Yeah.
I'll have a teeny amount. I'm
Thank
on the
you,
bike. I don't wanna
Callum. Thank you so
talk
much. Are
about
you going to have one with us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So you do.
Yeah. And they're kinda in the coach. One of them is in the coaching field.
Oh, yeah.
Business
know them?
coaching. Byron Cole. His wife. Byron and Bianca Cole. I think she was on The Apprentice as well. So they're quite good.
Did you know me up for?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%. They will be. Remy, was a TV producer. I think he does.
If you wouldn't mind introducing me to them, I would be so grateful. That'd be awesome.
Definitely. Let me get 5 for a second.
Okay, of course. Yeah. You've got a bigger glass of Prosecco than me.
Don't know about that.
Yeah, look.
Well, all right.
Oh, the same. Exactly the same.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
not
right.
boasting.
It is very good.
I was opening that with. Do you know I showcased your studio on an Instagram live?
Yes,
We-
yes.
We looked at the box. We opened the box.
Ah,
What's in the black box?
okay.
She tapped into the box. It's actually good that she did. We had some Haripos. I hope you don't mind,
Yeah,
because
that's-
I was freaking starving.
Well, Haribo's, we've got some Titan bars as well.
Oh,
Yeah, of
wow.
course.
A bit like
I was
Yeah.
laughing when I saw
Yeah.
that. I was like, yeah, of course you do.
Yeah.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
I really hope that
Cheers.
I'll get you
Cheers.
some customers.
Yes.
Cheers, my darling.
Yeah, that was a good one. I was saying that it was really obvious that she was more comfortable,
Yes.
but also, did you notice there wasn't all the lag time in between? It was like, yeah, okay, like on it, one after the other. Get
Yeah.
someone out, get the next person in. Hey,
Yeah.
sit down.
Yep.
Let's get it going. Let's go. And it was much smoother. So, yeah. And I think 3 is probably the best
Yeah, I did too.
number, because then it's not unless you want to do like all day, and you go, right, okay, we're going to book out a whole day. We're going to do 6 people, and you like
Take a
3 in
break.
the morning, and then go to lunch and have a couple hours for lunch, and then come back and do some in the afternoon. But I think 3 hours is probably good.
Yeah, that was perfect.
I think it's about right.
Yeah, I think three's a good number because I'm doing school pickups and this and that and bits of work. So to do a whole day would be quite hard.
It's quite exhausting to do more than 3. To be
Yeah,
honest.
absolutely. Yeah, so that works well. I like that. So we'll get 3 more on the 11th. In fact, I've got 3 pretty much. And then we'll launch towards the end of June, I suppose.
Some of these clips as well.
It's still going.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you'll be at the podcast show, yeah?
Yeah.
Did I
Got
send you?
somebody coming down from America.
Okay.
Doing a talk.
Okay. Cool.
Not babysitting, but I'm going to be looking after him
Yeah,
in
yeah.
situation if something turns up.
Okay.
That might be a good person to have.
Where is he from?
LA.
LA.
He's
Okay.
from LA. Brendan Boyd.
Okay. Yeah, I know that name. Yeah, yeah. I'll be there all 3 days. I'll have my other.
3 days.
Well, it's yeah. I'll be there with 2 days, I guess.
Okay.
Isn't it the 22nd, 23rd?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they doing a third? Because the last time they did the third day.
Yeah. Maybe I'm thinking of last time. Yeah.
Yeah.
22nd and 23rd. I'm at all of the parties on the night of the 22nd.
Yeah.
So I'm going to the. I replied and RSVP'd for the Pete Tong thing.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be at that, I'll be at that. Riverside's also having a drinks party as
Okay.
well.
Uh-huh.
Then I just booked a hotel. I'm like, there's no way I'm making the last train home.
Yeah.
So I'll be staying over for that, and then on the Thursday night is my 1-year birthday party for the podcast, and you're more than welcome to come around and I'll buy a drink for you. I'm gonna Thursday. I'm going to find a good pub just sort of around Angel. It's going to be a small group because a lot of my people are overseas. It's probably maybe 15 people or something like that. So just a little group of us, but just to celebrate 1 year. So yeah, you're more than welcome to come along. So yeah, that would be nice.
How long have you been going? Your podcast?
My podcast, 10 years.
Wow.
But I've kind of fallen off. I haven't really
Yeah.
kind of hitting a couple of years.
Yeah.
So I haven't really been
You haven't fallen off. You've what's the word?
transcended.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, there was nothing much more I could give. And I thought, doing something like this would be much more beneficial because I can contribute more. The whole idea of my channel anyway, Titans TV, was to raise generations of Titans. And it's like, okay, cool. I'm interviewing everybody. That's one step. Why don't I just do a podcast studio where I can set up other people to do exactly what I was doing and I just make more of an impact.
You mentor anyone?
Not really. Not really. There's a few people that I coach in a sense, but no, I don't
Are you on YouTube?
Yeah.
How many followers have you got?
60,000.
Great. So you're monetizing it.
Yeah.
Did you post like tips on how to make a podcast?
Oh, sorry, for this studio.
On YouTube.
Yeah, no, sorry, I'm not really on YouTube for the studio,
Right.
but for my own podcast that I was doing previously.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was 60,000,
Yeah.
13 billion views. So that was okay.
That's pretty good.
And has that stopped? Or
No, that's still continuing. So like, every month there's still a YouTube Google check coming through, which is good.
But you're not really actively
I'm
doing
not
it
really
though.
active.
You just got the channel still there. Yeah.
But you could continue with it,
I
couldn't you?
could. I think I will be. And we was having this conversation yesterday actually. And I'm not continuing because I actually have a passion for it. It's because I'm setting up a community here and I need to be a leader and I actually need to show that this is how you podcast.
Yeah.
So I have to jump back in it and actually do it.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
You change the podcast slightly to being somebody that's mentoring people that are starting a podcast.
Yes.
And Shelley's in the studio as well.
Callum V2.
Hmm?
Callum V2.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly that.
Or maybe V3 or V4.
Yeah,
I don't know.
There's so many renditions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Same. Yeah. Yeah. No. It's good. Sorry, the speed up.
I sat there talking to Tracy and I hope those microphones didn't pick it up. But
No, I don't think it's that sensitive. Oh yeah.
It's not. It doesn't look too good. It doesn't look too good. But that was it. Yeah. So there's a
Nice.
chicken breast.
Yeah.
There's some liver. You can't really see the liver.
Nice.
Chicken wing.
Yeah.
See,
A bit of fruit. Yeah.
Carnivore.
Nice.
Carnivore style diet.
Fruitivore.
Yeah.
That's what they call it. Fruitivore.
Fruitful.
Yeah.
Is it?
Or a bat
Yeah.
diet. Bats eat fruit, don't they?
I injured
You
my
can live on
abductor.
fruit. I don't think you could just live on fruit, though, could you?
Well, you need the
Carbs.
protein from the meat. Yeah, no, I injured my abductor the other day because I started doing some new exercises, and that's always dangerous.
Yeah.
And I literally couldn't walk, and it was like constant pain, and I'm like, I think I might have properly injured it instead of just like it wasn't normal soreness, right? And it was doing my head, and I was just like so, like that when you have constant pain, it just wears you down. I was just like, oh my god. I was just like, I just need a fucking mental health day. I need a break. I just need to eat shit and comfort food because I feel like I just need it.
Yeah.
So I just made a decision. I'm like, fuck it. So on Saturday, I basically said I'm not going to eat anything that's on the carnivore diet. So I ate fucking Pop-Tarts. I ate like, pastries. I ate all the shit. All the shit.
All of it.
Gained 2 kilos
Yeah. That's what happened. But
from one day, but I was like,
hopefully just water weight.
mostly. I think it's mostly water weight. Yeah. But still, it was like, I just needed it, man.
Yeah.
I needed a mental break from it because I just couldn't
I
fucking.
do that from week to week. My weight, if it's on a chart, is like that, up, down, up, down, up, down. It
Yeah.
depends on what you need. And in the winter, I put on what I call a winter coat. I
Yep,
eat a
yep.
bit
Yeah,
more.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
In summer, I'm a lot lighter. Always.
I oscillate. I think every 4 years I oscillate.
What's that? Oscillate?
Yeah. So either I put
Up
on
and
a lot of
down.
weight
Yeah.
and I'm just going back down to my normal like 200-pound weight, which I'm going down right now. So I'm usually slim. In the next 3 months, I'll be slim. I predict I'll be that weight, that slim weight for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
Something else will happen, and then I'll just start eating a lot of carbs, and I'll just go back up.
Yeah.
How old
Then
are you?
I am 37, 38 in August.
So give it a few years.
Yeah.
You're going to find it harder to drop that weight. Like in your 20s and 30s, it's super easy. You're like, I want to lose weight, fine. But then you get past a point, and it's like, oh, right, it doesn't work anymore. I'm going to have to do things differently.
I put on weight so quickly, and I lose it just as quick.
Yeah.
It's like, flipping out, man. Why can't I just be normal? Like my partner, she just eats, and I'm like, I try to eat just like she eats.
Yeah.
Like she's partially East African,
Okay.
so her limbs is just like very long, slender limbs, but then wide waist, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't eat the same foods that you eat because it doesn't do. I can't do it. As soon as I eat the carbs, I just put on pounds.
I think it's like for me, I prefer a high fat, low carbs diet.
Keto diet, that's the best.
Yeah.
As soon as I go back onto keto,
Yeah.
I just look good, feel good, everything.
Yeah,
Just that the
same.
carby food just tastes
Yeah.
10 times better. That's
But weirdly, I started working with that Kieran Kevin, the first guy I interviewed. He's my personal trainer, and he put me on a program where it was all carbs.
Yeah.
And I found it. I couldn't eat the amount he was telling me to eat. I was like, oh, I'm really full. It didn't suit me at all. And after me moaning and saying quite a lot, please can I have high fat, low carb, I'm now there, and I feel much happier.
that's it. And me, if I eat a steak in the morning, I'm good. I don't even need to eat till later on in the afternoon. Nice.
Yeah,
I've
100%.
never had steak for breakfast. Oh, okay. Steak and avocado.
You wouldn't even need the avocado. Just the steak. Some eggs, an omelette, steak and omelette, or like a beef patty in the morning as well. Some eggs.
Talking of food, do you want to go and grab some?
I'm absolutely starving.
Can we do anything to help here, Callum?
No, you're good. You're good.
Take the
Yeah.
glasses and
Do
stuff
you want to
out.
come join us for some food?
No, because I can't eat. I'm on my strict diet now.
Okay.
So I've had my food.
Bless you.
I'm not eating until about 4 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay.
Bless
thing though, please. Please. One thing.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'll do that in a sec. Yep.
Yeah.
Let's just do let's do a very quick vid. Very quick one.
Put all the prosecco glasses in the empty bottle together. It'd be like,
I'll take this one. Now we'll enjoy this.
another successful session.
So I'm over at the Titans podcast studio in Bromley, and I just wanted to introduce you to the owner, Callum, because he is just such a lovely, lovely guy, a really, really brilliant host, and always looks after us. And not only that, he's just the happiest person you'll ever meet. So, hi, Callum.
Hi.
Thank you so much for hosting us. So, yeah,
It's partially my personality and partially
I told you he's a good host. But yeah, super. Really, really recommend Callum and this beautiful studio. So yeah, he's got amazing cameras, hasn't he, David?
Yep, it's amazing. Very, very, very good kit, and very friendly, and it's an easy location to get to, probably from London and from the southeast. So yeah, it works really well.
Yeah, awesome. So thanks for having us, Callum, today.
Hey.
Done. Cool. I'll pop that. Oh.
So I'll send you an invite
Mhm.
to the party. I have like an event thing just so people can sign up, and I'll send you a discount code so you can get it for free.
Yeah.
I just had to put 100 quid on it to
Yeah,
keep
yeah.
any
So
randoms
everybody
from.
Yeah.
I mean, if they want to give 100 quid, they're more than welcome to come. But, but anyway, yeah. So I'll send you that, and then, like I said, it'll be somewhere around Angel. So after the show, you can just come over and have a drink. Be nice. And I'll have a few other people there. But yeah, cool.
It's a nice pub actually. Just as you come out here
Yeah.
to the left,
Yeah.
about 2 minutes. Just cross the road on the right.
Yeah.
That was alright.
I think the thing is that I've got numbers now. I think so. I think it's going to be about. It's only going to be about 15. So that's fine.
Yeah.
You can almost ruck up with 15 people just without even having anything special.
Yeah.
But if I could find a spot where I could just have a little corner or something, then that would be nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it'd be cool. Brilliant.
So I've got to go all the way back home now. Grab some cash. My battery on my Rolex has died.
Oh man.
So
I love that you're wearing two watches.
Yeah. so yeah.
Steps.
Steps,
Exact
exactly.
time.
Steps
Steps and time.
in time.
I've thought about getting a ring because the only
Yeah,
reason I wear
symbols.
my watch most of the time is for steps.
Steps, yeah.
And I'm like, if that's all I'm doing with it, then get an Aura ring or whatever and just wear that.
Wait, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It just
Yeah.
seems like it's easier just
Or
to have
just
the
do
ring.
the amount of steps that feel right. I think
No.
people are obsessed with counting steps. Honestly, I do.
I track my calories, I track my steps,
I mean, I started doing that, but I
My
got bored.
macros. my weight, my
Yeah.
body fat,
Yeah.
my gym time, so all my cardio, everything.
For
plus,
me, I just check in with how I feel. How do I
Yeah.
feel? My clothes, they feel a bit tight. Okay, I'll just, do a bit more exercise.
just get bigger clothes.
That's expensive. Why would I do that?
I'm at the point where I'm
It's
trying to get
hard work.
rid of my big clothes,
Yeah.
and I have to buy smaller clothes.
Well, that's a pleasure, though, isn't it?
I guess.
Or it depends whether you want it. Yeah, but some
Still
guys want to be
expensive.
big.